Hello, everyone. I'm Amanda Benjamin.
I'm Paul Carganilla, and we welcome you to our mystifying show in which we explore mysteries of the unknown.
As they waited, they could see the creature walk up to the porch, peek into the house through the windows, and even pushed against the door. In this live stream and podcast, we'll tell tales of the paranormal and unsolved, while mixing in a little fun and live music as well. Welcome to the Magical Mystery Hour. Join us tonight as we delve into the spooky secrets and spectral tales of Los Angeles. Hi, everybody.
Hello, season 2.
Yes, season 2. I can't believe it. We're here. I just sent a request, Paul, because I was realized I'm not recording.
I'll let it happen.
You.
I will allow you to record.
Woohoo! So hi, everybody. Welcome to season 2 of the Magical Mystery Hour. We're so excited.
Nice intro that you put together for that. Give it up for Amanda with the produced video and audio introduction here for season 2. And just like we threatened at the end of season 1 to keep inviting LA Beadles back. Well, we had so much fun with her in the finale. We're like, we're inviting you back to every episode next season. And she said, okay.
I meant every word I said. So I know it's funny. I got your message a few weeks ago. And I turned to my husband and I said, they meant it. Okay. So here we go. I was, when you're like really excited about something and you blush and you get giddy, I was so excited. Aww. So it's an honor. This is awesome. I'm happy to be here anytime.
Yeah. We just love this show. It's so fun. And we love your stories. I am a big fan of those history aspects. So I love that you love that too. I love it.
I've got a good one. I found one that allowed me to flex some 19th century history, like research muscles. So I actually went and did some newspaper archival research for this and unearthed a couple of fun things that I don't think anybody had connected to my topic yet. So yeah, so I definitely got some sleuthing going on in mine.
Yes. Well, if you're listening and you didn't happen to listen to our season finale last season when we introduced LA, I met LA through her podcast, Unsinkable, the Titanic podcast, which is wildly popular amongst Titaniacs like myself. And I was just honored to have her on Cove Pod. She had me on hers, and then she said she had been listening to some of these magical mystery hours, and I said, will you join us on one? And so she not only brings this podcasting history and as a veteran podcaster, but she has her doctorate degree in American history. So she is Dr. L.A. Beadles, an American historian.
Wow.
Yes.
And so, when we're talking
lovely introduction, thank you.
Ghosts and historical places that still have lots of energy, we're so glad that you said yes again to joining us, and I'm excited to hear your historical. So how did we, Amanda, come on this topic of Los Angeles haunts?
Oh, I love this. So in case you didn't know, we started a Patreon. And one of the perks of being on the Patreon is that we can have like these little monthly sessions, whether it's talking about the show or sometimes it'll just be different fun things that we do, games or something. But our Patreon community put out the idea of LA hauntings. And and we put a couple options on a wheel because we love wheels on this network.
We had a fun brainstorming virtual session where they were throwing out near-death experiences, Sasquatch again, conspiracies. We love that topic. Oh, yeah. American history mysteries. We're going to have to get
Royal
to this season
mysteries.
For sure. Royal.
What else was
aliens, of course. I just have written here, I don't remember who suggested it, but Jim Henson's Haunted Dolls collection.
Oh, yes.
We're gonna good one. That's a whole thing. Yeah.
Well, that's supposed to be like, we were trying to figure out how to do it because we talked about like there are these haunted objects. And we said especially dolls and then puppets. And we said Jim Henson puppets. We have fun at these Patreon.
Yes.
I can't wait for our next one.
But what a great topic. Los Angeles haunts.
Yes.
And
this was from Ramen Serona.
Right. And we said, well, it's LA haunts, and LA's Beadles is going to join us.
Right.
So she's, she may be in North Carolina, but she, as a historian, I'm sure has some good LA stories. And then she told us, as we're chatting before we started recording, she was just in Louisiana, LA. And had a haunted experience this past weekend.
I'll give you the very short version. We should totally at some point do an episode on the Myrtles Plantation, which is where this happened.
Oh, wow.
And I will say, caveat being that the Myrtles Plantation has absolutely no interpretation or signage in terms of the history of slavery, which is extremely problematic.
Wow.
I thought that they did. So when we were there, I put on my annoyed and my annoyed historian cap, so to speak. So I will say it's an amazing place to visit, but unfortunately there is that aspect of it. But it was built in 1796, and it's one of the oldest surviving full plantation structures in Louisiana, and it has all of the hanging crepe myrtle trees, which is where the name comes from. And we went obviously before this peak summer season is going to hit. It's usually crazy there in the summer, I've heard. And so we had a tour almost to ourselves, and then we had the property pretty much to ourselves. Wow. We were playing bocce ball on the lawn. It was really beautiful and creepy. But when we did the tour, my daughter heard these weird footsteps right above us in the landing. And what's crazy is that well, since we last spoke, I've been trained as a level 1 medium, which is a whole nother thing we should talk about at some point. Yes. So I'm on that journey. My next course starts in May. So I've been practicing a lot of meditating where you don't necessarily see a full body apparition, but you kind of learn to open up your mind's eye to seeing visuals and images. And so at the exact time that she was hearing this, I saw in my mind's eye the image of a little girl up at the top of the stairs looking through the slats. And later on the tour, they showed us a painting of one of the little girls that died obviously very unfortunately at age 4 from yellow fever, I believe. Oh. It was her. It was totally her.
Wow.
Looked exactly like what I had just seen, the visualization that had popped into my mind. And I was a little freaked out because it was the first time since I've done this course and I've been practicing all of this that I really felt like I had some amazing success in that way. But it makes sense that it would happen there because I think the spirits are so worked up there, and probably because people are just traipsing through rooms all day. And then also we had a Polaroid camera with us, and none of the pictures would develop. Oh. And then when we got back to the house we were staying at, it worked again.
What was it? A different roll of film?
No, same roll.
Same roll.
Wow.
Wow.
So, and just, to put it out there, because I'm sure people would ask, either in the chat or who listen to the podcast. So had you done any research? Is it possible that you saw this painting before, or
I don't, it's definitely possible in the deep recesses. It's a good question because I have watched documentaries on the Myrtles before, and it's very pronounced in the paranormal community. Right. So it's possible that maybe somewhere in the back of my mind, I had seen this painting on a documentary or something. And I mean, the mind is just such a cavernous, crazy place. So it definitely is possible. And even if that's the case, that's also kind of remarkable. Yeah. That the brain can do that.
Yeah. No, either way, it's really cool. Just me, I'm always I gotta know those things that bug me in my brain.
No, it's true. And it's totally plausible. And actually there's a brand new Netflix series of 30-minute documentaries called Files of the Unexplained. Have you seen this?
No.
And it's brand new. And what's crazy is that they're marketing it as just a typical gore and scary, creepy, almost like something you'd see on the Travel Channel, all the ghost hunter stuff. But really, it was put together by people who did a lot of historical research. So we watched the episode on the Myrtles right after we were there the other night, and they did so much research on all of the different mythologies, all of the different ghosts that are supposedly there, and they debunked some of them, which I really appreciated.
Yes.
Because I'm often a curious skeptic. I want historians and researchers working on things to try to get to the heart of what actually happened. And so they debunked a couple of the big ones there. and sort of made the conclusion that, maybe there's more going on here. Maybe we need to talk about the slaves that lived on the property or the Native Americans that lived on the property before. And so that's a long-winded way of saying I really recommend it to people because the documentary is a lot deeper and more complex in these episodes than one would believe, coming on Netflix and sort of advertised.
I love Netflix documentaries. They're often
they can be really good. So I highly recommend. I think there's like 9 episodes and it ranges from alien stuff to a couple of haunted houses. But yeah, I was shocked at the quality. It's really good.
I will definitely check that out. We're always looking for like 30-minute long things because by the time we finally get on the couch and it's like time for bed, it's like don't want to jump into a movie. Anytime we find a show that's good enough, we want to keep watching the next episode. So 30-minute chunks is great.
Love it.
I have to hit on though, I didn't know you could take classes and there were levels of mediumship.
I know.
This is so
I
cool.
kind of want to check it out. Like
you should do it. So I'll give her a plug. She's sort of a hero of mine. Her name is Carolyn Swift Jones, and she's worked as a medium for many, many years and a healer. She has a degree in theology as well. She works in many capacities, but she does past life readings that you can sign up for online, and she's been doing that for years as well. But yeah, she does classes, and during the pandemic, she had to start doing everything online, and then thankfully she's just kept doing it that way so people like me can join. But she's incredible. And it's honestly like therapy. It's basically like a way to practice meditation, learn to explore different parts of your own brain and how it works, and how to practice pretty much like very radical empathy, like understanding people around you and being able to, like, mediumship to her is being able to, read the energies of someone in front of you, everything they've been through. It's all about empathy and compassion and picking up on the entities and energies that are around them. So I'm still very early in the process. I'm going to start level 2 this summer, but she's incredible. So I really encourage people to look her up. And she's been on a couple of podcasts. You guys should see if she'll come on.
Yeah.
I bet she would. She's phenomenal.
Well, you could invite her and be like, will you come on this podcast I'm a host of?
I'll talk. No, I really will. I'll talk to her when level 2 starts in May and I've got, time on a screen with her face to face. I'll mention it to her. I wonder if she might. Yeah. I really think she might. Would be awesome.
That'd be neat.
So cool.
Yeah, Dari's like, bring her here.
Everyone in the chat is like, we need to.
Yeah, because we did have Jackie. She's a medium. We had her on.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So it'd be cool to have another one, especially someone who's a teacher who could.
Yeah, she's a lot to say. Yeah. But yeah, so I will continue. I'll update you on my. It's I'm very early in the process, but I've learned a lot, and I feel like my brain already works in a different way than it did a few months ago.
That's cool. Love it.
Super awesome. All right. Well, we are here to tell some stories. Yes. And as we do on this show, we always mix in some music with the stories as well. We try and pick songs that like go along with the theme of what we're talking about. But since we've done so many ghost episodes already, and like the library of music about ghosts,
it gets a little smaller.
it's not as expansive as we'd like, but sometimes we have to get creative in justifying certain tunes. But I will say that the song that I chose for today is based on this topic of Los Angeles haunts, and I will be telling some specific to Hollywood. And a specific ghost that seems to be the hardest working ghost in Hollywood today. And I'm going to track their movement through a few of the many places that they are said to still be active. But the whole idea of, they say the haunted places have so much energy, and most of the time it's sorrow and just like the deepest level of pain that ties spirits to locations. And in Hollywood, of course, you're going to find that because, people come here with huge dreams and just, the passion to tell stories and to be known all over the world and to find fame doing so. A lot of times that once they face rejection and their dreams are crushed, a lot of people meet very untimely and not very beautiful ways of leaving this world, but with a broken heart. And a lot of the times they're taking their own lives. And a lot of the ghost stories that you find, it's many times someone who ended it themselves. But so the ghost that I'm going to be talking about, actually, well, it's a conspiracy, but is thought to have gone out in that way. But they were a Hollywood star and had the biggest level of success you could dream of, and still couldn't find happiness. And so I landed on the American musical treasure Britney Spears' Lucky.
All right. Can't wait to hear it. Oh, hang on a sec, Paul. Oh. Okay. Hang on one second anyways, because I forgot to do the hide non-participants. There we go. Now we can see you all full screen.
Early morning, she wakes up and knock, knock, knock on the door. It's time for makeup, perfect smile. It's you they're all waiting for. Isn't she lovely, this Hollywood girl? And they say she's so lucky, she's a star, but she cries in her lonely heart, thinking, if there's nothing missing in my life, why do these tears come at night? Lost in an image, in a dream, but there's no one there to wake her up. And the world is spinning, but she keeps on winning. But tell me, what happens when it stops? Isn't she lovely, this Hollywood girl? And they say she's so lucky, she's a star, but she cries in her lonely heart, thinking, if there's nothing missing in my life, then why do these tears come at night? She is so lucky, but why does she cry? If there is nothing missing in her life, why do tears come at night? She's so lucky, she's a star, she cries in her lonely heart, thinking, if there's nothing missing in my life, why do these tears come at night?
That was awesome.
Thanks.
I really loved that. I was like, oh.
I've never thought about listening to that song slowed down a bit.
Mhm.
And if you really listen to the lyrics, it's devastating.
Oh, heartbreaking. It's tragic.
I haven't heard it in years. Wow.
Yeah.
Good job. No, that got me.
Mhm.
Oh, Well, thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Always fun to perform live for y'all.
Yeah.
Well,
All
we
right.
usually get started on the right foot forward, and that's with Amanda Benjamin telling
Let's
us
do
some mysterious stories. Amanda, faced with the topic of Los Angeles haunts, what spooked you?
Man, I was going back and forth. I thought about doing like, kind of like you said, actually like a specific actor that had come to my mind. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that. No, going back and forth. And then I just happened to come across this topic and I was like, oh, this has everything I want. It has history. It has ghosts. It has curses. It has everything. I decided to talk about Griffith Park.
Nice. Now, for anybody who's maybe not from the area, that's like the area around the observatory, right?
Yeah. So it's about 4,000 acres of land that was donated to the city, and the observatory is one teeny tiny part of it. It goes observatory. It goes. It has the Hollywood sign. It has a countless number of like little picnic areas and it's incredibly huge. Canyons, and I just even today saw what was it? It's called like the Fern Dell, and it looks beautiful. It's like got little bridges everywhere and ponds and trees and just so everything you think of, zoos and like that. It's just an incredible place. And when you're there, you feel like you're not even in the middle of Los Angeles. You're, in some nice wooded area.
There are some, I mean, believe it or not, around Hollywood, around LA, there's really great hiking trails with beautiful views. And Griffith Park is definitely one of the, you see in some movies, like the romantic comedies, the couples will go jogging past the Hollywood sign.
Oh, God, no. Don't do that. It's so hard.
It's Hollywood. It's movies.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Those trails are no joke, to be honest. And there's a lot of like wildlife and things. If you do want to go, just be smart and be careful. Just saying. There also might be ghosts.
Tell us about that.
All right. Well, with that, I suppose I will begin my story about Griffith Park. So I'm going to start some music too. You guys can let me know in the chat. I have it about as softly as I can get, so hopefully we're good. But let me know and I can always pause it. All right, here we go. So tonight, I'm going to take you on a trip into one of the most iconic and beautiful locales in Los Angeles. Let's delve into the depths of Griffith Park, a sprawling oasis nestled within the heart of the city. Covering over 4,300 acres, Griffith Park is not only one of the largest urban parks in North America, but also a haven of natural beauty and captivating landmarks. From the majestic observatory perched atop Mount Hollywood to the iconic Greek theater and the famous Hollywood sign, every corner of this park exudes a sense of wonder. Yet, underneath its scenic trails and breathtaking vistas, Griffith Park harbors secrets that defy explanation. Beneath the tranquil facade lies a shadowy past, shrouded in tales of curses, hauntings, and inexplicable phenomena. Today, we'll journey into the heart of Griffith Park, exploring the chilling legends surrounding Park Bench 29, where visitors have reported eerie apparitions and unsettling encounters. We'll venture into the abandoned zoo, where whispers of bygone animals seem to echo through the rusted cages. And we'll dare to step aboard the timeless carousel, where the laughter of phantom riders mingles with the creaking of withered wood. Join me as we peel back the layers of Griffith Park's history, uncovering the darkness that lurks beneath its serene exterior. Before we get into the driving force behind all the hauntings of Griffith Park, we, of course, have to explore a little bit of the history of the land, because it's in the history that we'll truly come to understand and embrace what's going on within the park. So before it became the familiar Griffith Park that we know, the 4,000 acres of land was owned by Don Antonio Feliz, who's a wealthy Californio. And in case you aren't familiar with that term, a Californio is a native Spanish landowner who had property in the United States before it was purchased from Mexico. So Don Antonio lived with his sister, Soledad, and his blind teenage niece, Doña Petronilla. Okay. In 1863, Don Antonio was infected with smallpox, and his illness progressed quickly. Shortly before his death, his lawyer, Don Inocente, and a local politician, Don Coronel, conspired to inherit his vast wealth and land. Finding him in a fevered state, the two men surreptitiously changed his will, and they tied his head to a stick. So basically they put like a stick here so he could nod in agreement to what they were saying.
Like Weekend at Bernie's style?
Yeah, he was still alive, but he was so out of it. Like,
he couldn't move.
He couldn't move. He couldn't understand anything that was happening. So they propped him up, right? They put like a stick behind him so he could stay, and they had him ready to go. So they could say, "Do you agree to this?" And his head would nod.
Talk about like a Jim Henson style curse.
I know.
Holy buckets! Like you're literally being a puppeteer of a man who's alive.
I know. Oh my God.
That is the level of conniving and evil.
I know. But if you think about it, he had over 4,000 acres of land. Like, can you imagine that kind of wealth? Like the lengths that they go to, and he only has his sister and his niece. So for them, back then, it's like, it's going to go to waste, right?
It's interesting, though, that you brought that up, because I never realized I lived in Studio City for a while, and a lot of the streets and areas are Don something, Don this, Don that, and I didn't realize it's because, the immigrants from Mexico, founding California, and that makes so much sense. Los Feliz is obviously based on... Wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, can't believe that happened, but... So... Yeah, they got it to look like he was agreeing to their changes in the will, and with that, they signed his name, and Coronel gained a fortune. Meanwhile, Soledad inherited some furniture, and Doña Petronilla was left with nothing. So, rightly furious, Doña Petronilla cursed the land, dooming them to disease and death, so that not one person could profit off the stolen land. According to historians, her words were, "Your falsity shall be your ruin. The substance of the Feliz family shall be your curse. The lawyer that assisted you in your family and the judge shall fall beneath the same curse. The one shall die an untimely death, the other in blood and violence. You, Senor, shall know misery in your age. And although you die rich, your substance shall go to vile persons. A blight shall fall upon the face of this terrestrial paradise. The cattle shall no longer fatten, but sicken on its pastures. The fields shall no longer respond to the toll of the tiller. The grand oaks shall wither and die. The wrath of heaven and the vengeance of hell shall fall upon this place." And it said, after uttering these words and starting this curse, she instantly died.
I was going to ask, what do you think the qualifiers are to be able to just place a curse on a family? Does it have to be the last thing you say before you die?
Apparently.
I guess it was.
It was. Yeah.
That's so
I mean, that's a big curse, too.
Effective that way. Yeah.
Everly was asking because she's been on a Leonardo DiCaprio kick, and so she wanted to watch Romeo and Juliet. And
Paul, this is huge to me. You understand that? Do you see? It's even on my phone. Everly and I need to talk. Sorry to interrupt, but we'll just send her my way.
But she was asking, why Mercutio's Romeo's best friend? Why does he curse his family too? And we had to explain that to him. But it was the last thing Mercutio said before he died, right?
Yeah.
A curse on
A
your
pox
houses?
upon your houses.
Curse upon both your houses. Yeah.
So I guess it just has to be like the last thing you say before you die,
Yeah.
and then it's like it
And
hangs
it's like,
around.
all right.
All right.
Yeah, gotta really watch that. I guess whatever the last thing is could be interpreted as a curse, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Now you really need to plan for this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pick your last words well, you guys. Well, oddly, this curse would turn out to be eerily accurate. Don Coronel lived a long life, but sadly outlived many of his family members. And first there was his lawyer, Don Inocente, who was killed in a bar fight while celebrating his good fortune. Coronel also saw family members die of disease, accidents, misfortune, and after his death, his widow remarried, but her new husband would file for divorce in an attempt to take her money and land. And litigation lawyers ended up taking almost everything she had left during the contentious court battle.
Side note, you just had an orb in your
Ooh, exciting.
webcam there.
Ooh. I do have a couple pictures to show you of these people. So before we move on. So this is Don Feliz in the middle and his sister Soledad and Doña Patronilla. So those are the three. And then there's also a picture of Don Coronel here. And just so you can get an idea of who some of those players are.
He looks like the most interesting man in the world.
Right? Oh, there we go. I almost lost my place. There we go. I know it's not this, but hang on. I'm just going to scroll through these. There it is. Okay. Anyways, so we're back. The next owner was Leon Lucky Baldwin. He tried to run a dairy farm on the land, but the business failed. The cows, many of them died. There was a cow kind of disease that went through. There was also a fire. And he lost the land to the mortgage companies after a huge rainstorm, again, which led to crop failures, locusts, all of this stuff. Just, right? You're like, how misfortunate can a man named Lucky be? But
he's so lucky.
yes. And that sounds awfully close to the curse, right? The cattle die of disease, locusts. Rain, crops, not answering to the telephone.
Locusts is biblical. I mean, locusts are.
I know these people.
That's a pretty big indicator that something is very much awry, could be curse related. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely
an elevated curse.
Yes.
Your curse has been elevated.
Yes.
They bought the higher package in the simulation.
Oh man.
The biblical plague package as a curse. Yeah.
Oh no.
I know you came in here to buy the last word spoken package, but could we interest you for just $50 more?
It's an add-on. Locusts. You have like 2 generations. Pick 2 generations, they'll get locusts.
Yes. Now I'm thinking it's like the length of your curse and the like amount of time you have left, right? Like if you have less time left on Earth, maybe your curse is shorter, but it's stronger. I don't know. I think there's a balance there. I think that's where the levels are. If you pick like the lowest package, you get 5 years to figure out your curse, but it's not going to be that great.
That's all I'll get. I probably can just afford the lowest package.
You got to go generational. Like go big or go home.
Yes. Yeah. So in 1882, Welsh mining investor Colonel Griffith J. Griffith. Now, just so you know, Colonel was a self-given title. He never actually served in any military.
I'm sorry, his name was Griffith?
Yes, Griffith J. Griffith. Yeah.
I think at that point, you got to go to like just your initials.
I know. Yeah.
GJ Griffith,
GJ.
maybe.
Yeah, that's probably what he went by, I would imagine. Yeah.
So, So in 1882, Colonel Griffith J. Griffith bought the Rancho Los Feliz land and started an ostrich farm. On the farm, he would charge people to ride ostriches, take pictures with them, but found that the venture was not terribly profitable, despite the fact that ostrich farms were becoming really popular in California. And because of this, a local business rival actually took exception to him opening the ostrich farm. The man found Griffith, shot him with a shotgun, and then fled the scene and turned the gun onto himself, thinking his dark deed was done. But he made a huge mistake. He accidentally loaded the gun with birdshot, which consists of a lot of small pellets that scatter instead of larger slugs. So Griffith actually survived the ordeal, and the business rifle, using the gun on himself, did not. So upon examining his finances, Griffith realized that he needed to make some changes and try to make his land profitable. He decided to donate a portion of the land to the city as parkland. However, this wasn't entirely philanthropic. He received a really large tax break, and it helped to improve his reputation in Los Angeles. So after the deal was done, Griffith decided to celebrate. He threw a party at the old adobe house, which is the former residence of Don Feliz Soledad and Doña Petronilla. And it is now used by the Parks Department. He invited politicians and dignitaries from the area. It was a grand and beautiful night. Everyone was celebrating, wine was flowing, there was merriment in the air. But at the stroke of midnight, an uninvited guest entered the scene. It was none other than the ghost of Don Antonio Feliz himself. He walked toward the head of the dinner table, stood in front of Griffith's chair, and surveyed the guests. He uttered the words, "Señores, I am Antonio Feliz. I've come to invite you to dine with me in hell. In your great honor, I have brought an escort of subdemons." The lights suddenly went out, and all the guests fled the scene with Don Feliz chasing them on horseback.
I bet they did.
Right?
He got the subdemons package.
He did.
Wow.
Isn't that
I didn't
wild?
know there were sub-demons you could hire.
I know.
Like as if appearing
like-
as a ghost and saying "dine with me in hell" is not enough.
I know,
I have
right?
brought these sub-demons to show you I mean business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you can't afford the big demons, you know. No Beelzebub for you.
So it's the lower.
It's like the lower
level
demons.
These are lower
Yeah.
level demons.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to be clear, this is crazy. So multiple people in the
Yes.
room report this. Like they had a mass.
Yeah.
There was a mass
Yeah.
Shared
apparition.
experience.
Yeah. And like, who knows?
Experience.
It could have, for all we know, I mean, like, it could have been an actual person, you know, could have been.
That
Right.
Yeah, it could
Like,
have been an actual person
who
just saying,
knows?
who's like trying to scare them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but like, who would do that? And who would, you know, like, I feel like it's got to be connected somehow, like maybe like a distant relative. I don't know. Because somebody has to know the
An
story.
angry relative that's still alive.
I don't
yeah.
know.
Like get some great makeup going, powder yourself up so you're leaving a trail as you walk through, and then I don't know about the subdemons though. I don't know how you fake.
I know.
Draw some lines. Some really scary, like dark, sallow
Yes.
lines on your face.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And that was the start of Griffith Park. What? Like, that's right after he sold the land. It was like, all right, we're going to have a little park on this land. Demons.
Demons.
Wow.
Parents, bring your kids.
Yeah.
We're gonna have fun here.
Yes.
Demons. Have a picnic with the demons.
So Colonel Griffith was just never the same after this. He began drinking heavily, and reports said that he drank about 2 quarts of whiskey a day, which is several bottles. Like, it's a lot.
Unfamiliar, yes.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah,
I'm no stranger to whiskey myself,
Oh,
but
no.
2 quarts that's serious business.
It's a lot.
That's a cruise package. That's
Yes.
a polypicnic cruise package right there.
Dari even said that in the chat. Dari said specialty package. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So not only is he drinking this huge amount of whiskey, He's also become paranoid that someone was out to get him. He became convinced that his wife, Tina Mesmer Griffith, was plotting against him. So here, I have a quick picture of Tina. So this is Tina. That's his wife. She's beautiful. And yeah, it just a combination of everything that happened. His heavy drinking, paranoia. He decided that she was after him.
Sorry. I am so sorry.
No,
I tried to, it was someone sending me a link of what we were on. And
Oh, nice.
So sorry about that.
They're like, is this
Join
you?
us in the chat.
Yeah.
I thought, no, I'm telling them too. I was just like making sure, but yeah, I thought that mute would make it all mute. So my apologies.
No.
I apparently am terrible on a cell phone. So anyway, I was trying to get us more people in the chat. Anyway.
Yes, no.
Proceed.
I'm so everybody.
Invite everybody and drop in yourself. We have a little.
You're invited, and people are sharing the link, which is good too. So
yeah, I love it. So not only was he convinced that Tina was plotting against him, he decided that she was conspiring with the Pope. Now, that sounds so far-fetched. Apparently, she was Catholic and he was Protestant. So clearly, she must be in league with the Pope to get rid of him.
I didn't expect the Pope to enter
No,
the chat.
I didn't either. But here he is. So while the couple were vacationing in Santa Monica, he pulled out his gun and he shot her in the presidential suite of the Arcadia Hotel. However, she survived the attack, and somehow she managed to get out a window and to fall onto the awning below. She was left disfigured and blind in one eye, but she was able to testify in both her divorce trial and the attempted murder trial against Griffith. And ultimately, her divorce was granted, and Griffith was convicted of attempted murder. However, he only served 2 years in San Quentin as he was found insane due to alcohol.
That's 2 quarts of whiskey.
2 quarts of whiskey.
Yeah.
Caused insanity.
Right there. Hey, shout out to all the awnings across the world that catch people when they fall out of tall buildings. Yeah. That's awesome.
I didn't know that could actually work, but
I thought that just happened in movies.
Yeah.
I didn't know that happened in real life.
It does.
I wonder if there's like a bounce that happens like in the movies. Do you get like a little?
Probably depends on the awning.
Yeah, and how
but
far
I've
up
got one
you
in my
live,
story too. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Shout out to awnings.
Shout out.
Catching people.
After he served his incarceration sentence, Griffith was still a very wealthy man, and he was released from prison. He decided to donate an additional 3,000 acres of land to the city of Los Angeles, citing it as a Christmas present. It was also a way to unload what he now believed was cursed land, and thought it would help his reputation. So the city named the park Griffith Park, in his honor and in honor of his generosity. Now that we've delved into the chilling history of the land and the enduring curse of Griffith Park, it's evident that these sprawling acres hold more than just natural beauty. Beneath the surface lies a realm where the past and the present intertwine, giving rise to tales of relentless spirits and lingering echoes of the past. So let's journey into Griffith Park and cover a couple of the hauntings that continue to plague the shadowy corners, each ghostly encounter serving as a reminder of the park's dark past. So first up in our ghost story roundup is the haunted merry-go-round. By day, the attraction was a fun excursion where families gather, children laugh and they run around, and there's old-timey music playing, and it's just really fun way to spend a Saturday with your family. But
I have to ask.
Yes.
Is this the Walt Disney merry-go-round?
So there are stories that Walt Disney used to go to the merry-go-round at Griffith Park and sit and watch his kids go on the merry-go-round, and that was the inspiration for the merry-go-round.
He was sitting on a bench next to the merry-go-round, and he thought, I wish there was a park where parents could have fun too, and that's what spawned Disneyland, apparently.
Exactly.
And that bench is in one of the parks or museums or something. But
yeah, we were talking about that when we were there. Somebody was asking about that. And I was like, I don't know if it's here or not. I've heard that story, but I didn't look into it before I came. So.
Yeah. Okay. So the merry-go-round in Griffith Park.
Yeah, and this is what it looks like when it's open. Just a picture of like a little bit of the merry-go-round, so you see the horses and things like that. But this is what it looks like now. It's closed up. It's from a little distance, but you see it's not open right now, which I didn't even know until I started looking at it. Because everywhere I'd seen had said, yeah, it's open on the weekends. Google says it's open on the weekends, and it's couple different days, different hours, but it is now closed.
Yeah, I think that's the Disney one.
Yeah, it looks almost just like it. It really does.
No, I mean like never mind. That's the one he was at. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes.
I think it was also in a Jessica Simpson music video in 1998 or.
Oh. Somebody can look that.
Oh my gosh, my brain immediately could picture what you're talking about. That's horrible. Why has my brain not gone to that video?
Wow.
I can see it in my head the minute you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I'm bringing Brittany and Jessica straight into this episode, so here we are.
No, they should like they're making some like royalties off of the nostalgia you're causing in people right now.
Oh my goodness. Well, at night, the atmosphere changes completely. It is said that you can hear voices and banging behind those shuttered doors. It's also said that a ghost of a little girl, Mary, tragically lost her life on the carousel, and her ghost is still there. Legend has it that Mary loved going to Griffith Park and especially riding the carousel. She was enthralled by the carousel's whimsical charm, but poor Mary met a gruesome fate when she tumbled from the spinning merry-go-round, her laughter silenced forever by the cruel hand of fate. Yet, her spirit, it is said, refuses to depart from the place where she once found so much joy. Mary is said to linger near the carousel, her spectral form dancing in the moonlight or running through the carousel at night, her laughter echoing through the park as she relives the fleeting moments of happiness from her earthly life. And little Mary is not alone in her spectral wanderings. Another ghostly presence, that of a carnival worker, forever bound to the creaking machinery of the carousel, casts a haunting shadow over the ride's faded glory. Witnesses speak of a ghostly figure shrouded in darkness, eternally trapped in a cycle of repair and disrepair. His presence a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk within the park's forgotten corners. Visitors also claim to see a shadow man walking between the horses and then suddenly disappearing. But could this be our repairman, checking the horses, making sure that the ride is safe for all the children? Or is it something more sinister? Who can say? What secrets lie hidden within the carousel's timeless embrace, waiting to be unearthed by those brave enough to peer into the abyss? So that's the merry-go-round, and we actually went by. We had some fun. I won't say we were ghost hunting, but we had some fun going around. I got a little ghost radar app, which is really fun to play with. So we went first to the merry-go-round, took a couple little videos that I'll play for you right now. So.
How fun.
All right.
This was yesterday, right?
Yeah, this is yesterday. And I'll leave us, so you won't be able to see us, but you can hear, if you guys want to make any comments during, we can hear it. So just so you know. So I'll leave your mics on. All right, here we go. So we're walking around the abandoned zoo at Griffith Park, and we just got to this smaller area, and the ghost radar said buried right. Wait, all right, merry-go-round. So this is the Griffith Park merry-go-round, and I have the ghost radar app. So far, I've been getting a lot of out service broke, which was really interesting because for some reason it's not running. And so we're just gonna see if any more words come up. I've had a lot of ghosts on the radar so far. So let's see. Is there any other ghosts around here who want to say anything? Oh, look, there's one. Okay, it popped up on the radar. Hi. Is there anything you want to share with our audience tonight? Okay, another one appears. We were just with a couple too who walked by and asked about Walt's park bench. Because apparently Walt Disney used to sit here and watch his kids go on the merry-go-round. And right when we were talking about that, that's when all the words popped up before we were filming.
It's like Pokemon Go, but it's Pokemon Ghost.
Yes! How about the Shadow Man? Is the Shadow Man around here? Oh, look! One popped up. Yeah, the Shadow Man. Another one.
Shake.
Shake. Are we supposed to shake, or is it shaking from the wind? What does that mean?
Milkshake.
Milkshakes. I love milkshakes. Let's see if we get any other ghosts around who want to say anything. All right. Well, they told me it's broken, out of service, and that something's shaking. I hope there's not an earthquake.
No, I think they want a milkshake.
All right, here we are at the Griffith Park merry-go-round. It is currently closed despite its hours, saying that it's open today from 11 to 5. What a bummer. But it's actually kind of cool and creepy, and I kind of love it. So I just found this little way to get in, and I'm debating on if I want to go in because I'm a rule follower. I'm of two minds, and I don't like that.
But I did it anyways. Don't tell Jamie. I trespassed at the Queen Mary when it was closed. Don't tell Paul, don't tell anybody when
That
you
was really scary. I was afraid I was going to get stuck.
I guess I just told myself. I think to make me feel later when you asked me.
Oh, is that a cop over there?
Shut up. That's my worst nightmare. I get charged of trespassing at the zoo.
It's not a zoo anymore.
At the park.
Oh no. Oh no. Bill, I will never do it again.
The red ghost pops up again and said heat.
So it was closed. There was a red ghost just then. That's it. It's waiting. But
Yeah,
it's
the ghost here. It said Mike.
like Mike Pierce. Watch out, Nicole. It thinks Mike is hot.
Now there's
Or
two.
maybe that it knows you have a mic on it. You know, like that's how you're hearing.
Anything else before I leave the area? Noted. Like, all right, I'm noting that you're gonna leave the area now. All right. Pain. All right. Well, I'm gonna get going. Any other parting words for me? There's another ghost that popped up. It's blue this time. David, does blue mean you're a good ghost? Related. All right. Well, those are the closing words. Apparently, we're related. Oh, how did it just said something that was closed?
Did I close the app and then
Weird.
it started talking again?
Okay.
It's a ghost.
Get out of here before I hurt myself. All right. Oh. Make things smaller. We are small people.
Yeah, yes. It tried to eat my shirt. It's like, no, let me go, please. Yeah, so that was, like I said, I thought it was really interesting. I was like, I didn't see the part, but it was right at the beginning that the ghost app kept telling me out of service, broke, which I thought was interesting because
Because the
it
ride
wasn't
was
working.
closed.
Yeah. But so who knows? Like I said, so nothing groundbreaking, but it was actually really fun. I was like, it might be neat to get like more people and equipment and go again at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At night.
At night.
Gotta go at night.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
To properly freak yourself out.
I know. All right. Well, I'll continue with the story. Now, on to one of my favorite Griffith Park hauntings, Picnic Table 29. As the story goes, on Halloween night 1976, 22-year-old musician Rand Garrett and 20-year-old aspiring actress Nancy Jeanson, who were childhood sweethearts, decided to take a stroll through secluded Griffith Park under the cover of moonlight. The couple sat on Picnic Table 29, passionately embraced, and shared an amorous moment when they were crushed by a falling tree, killing them instantly. It was absolutely tragic, and as a tribute to the couple, their cremated remains were scattered at the park, at the picnic table, so that they could remain together in the park they loved forever. Someone even immortalized them by writing their names and the date, 10/31/76, with an RIP on the bench. Despite the fact that their ashes have long since been blown away, the tree has not moved an inch or even seemed to decompose in the slightest. And it's been about 48 years. So I have a picture of this. So this is the bench with a tree. So you can see, I mean, it's huge, and the bench is pretty well destroyed. The table is, yeah. But you can sit in it if you want. But that's all that's left. And as I said, the tree is still there 48 years later.
Well, there must be human particle. What did they call it with the Titan? They found human
Some remains isn't the word. They used
Right.
another word, like a partial.
Yeah, it was like human particles or something like. But in like between the tree and the table.
Yeah. There's probably
And it's still there.
probably
Wow.
trace amounts. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I also never, logistically, I just never thought about death, like immediate death from a tree falling on you. But I guess the force and the weight and the pressure would. I mean, it seems amazing to me that would kill two people on impact.
But that's a huge tree, especially if you like in your head or anything.
Yeah, I guess if they were both hit in their head, especially, or I guess like you crush your middle
I was
section,
gonna say
of your organs.
chest too, like
Crush your
even because there's
chest,
nobody
yeah.
there, they wouldn't find you.
Well, that's the thing. Even if you might have survived if
Yeah.
you'd had care, like who would have been there to provide care? And so that's a pretty horrific end, because they may have stayed alive for a little while.
It's possible.
Yeah.
If a tree falls on an amorous moment, did that moment ever happen?
Oh.
How do we know that they were in the middle of an amorous
That I
moment?
don't know. That's the story, though.
Someone had to be there.
I did not.
Never mind. I have some guesses as to how they know, but I'll keep
Yeah. I didn't know.
Griffith Park Joe was in the bushes watching this amorous moment happen, and whoop.
those. Why didn't he help?
He's not supposed to be there.
Oh, that's right. He
Yes.
fled
Yes,
immediately.
fled
Yeah.
the scene. But our story does not end there. Not even a little. The first paranormal incident was reported by city tree trimmer Morris Carl, who had been asked to clear the tree. According to the incident report he filed that evening, he arrived at the site on November 7th at 11:40 a.m. And shortly after starting his task, Carl claims that he was overcome by a very strange sensation. In his own words, Carl says, "In my statement, I said that I felt funny. What happened was I'd sawed off the crown of the tree and from out of nowhere, I got hit with this really strong chill. And so hard, it was as if I was coming down with the fastest flu ever. I tried to shake it off and get back to work. But each time I'd fired up the saw and get near the tree, I'd get real cold and hear this weird moaning and crying. So I'd stop the saw and listen, and it would go away. But then I'd start her up again, and it would come back. Finally, I was freezing so bad that I had to go to the truck and get my coat. And that's when things, these are my words, That's when things went from bad to worse. He said that the tree started shaking violently, and he continues the story saying, "The tree just went crazy. Not just lightly shaking, but bouncing up and down as if someone was picking it up and dropping it." So from there, the tree kept shaking, and his massive power saw would actually like fall off the table, and then the tree would stop moving when it was finally on the ground. And as if that isn't weird enough, Carl says that the haunting continued to escalate on the ground, as if something was just there. I mean, how can you imagine like seeing a tree, like somebody can just pick it up? I don't know. But it kept escalating, and he heard a moaning and then a whisper in his ear, "Leave us alone." After this, Carl had had enough, and he fled to the safety of his truck. He got in, locked the door, put his keys in the ignition, turned them, and nothing. The truck was inexplicably dead, completely unresponsive. Then we reached the worst part of the event. Then he says, "The next thing is the rumbling sound along the windshield and the letters being written across fogged up glass. The first was an N and then an E, and then I realized the word was next. Then there's a T and an I, and that ends up saying time. Then a Y and an O and a U, and the last word was die. Next time you die."
I'll get you next time, Gadget.
Yes. Yes.
Next time. It's so very Final Destination-y.
Right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So finally, Carl's truck started, and he raced out of there as fast as he could, feeling that Rand and Nancy had let him off easy with a warning. His supervisor, Dennis Higgs, was not thrilled that the tree was still there, and he didn't believe a word of the story. Morris Carl had told him the story, and no, he didn't believe it. But he decided to take, or his supervisor decided to take a $500 bet to cut down the tree after dark. So he packed up his power tools, headed off towards picnic table 29, and that was the last time anyone saw him alive.
No.
Higgs was found the next morning by a jogger, flat on his back and not responding. His chainsaw was by his side, and startlingly, the blade is said to be bent in a U shape. He was pronounced dead at the scene, and the coroner listed the cause of death as a heart attack. But supposedly, those who saw Higgs' corpse remarked that his hair had gone white and that he looked horrified. Many described his face as if he'd seen the devil himself. The police later revealed that Higgs's hands were injured and that his fingernails were broken. And further investigation showed that he'd actually probably struggled against someone who would have dragged him across the ground for about 15 feet toward the picnic bench.
It was the guy that didn't think he would take the $500
Right?
bet.
I mean, entirely possible.
Or like someone in his life that was looking for an excuse anyway and thought, this will get blamed on a ghost or a demon now. So that's documented, the finding of the body, that's all documented.
That's as far as I've seen. Yes, like this is, I mean, obviously it's hard to go back and confirm all of it, but there are reports from Morris, but I think personally, I'm guessing the white hair and possibly the bent saw are exaggerations.
Could be just conjecture.
But as far as I've seen, and it's a question, obviously, because a lot of these are urban legends and things that get passed around. It is hard to find anything about Rand and Nancy. I have not found anything to back them, but a lot more people have talked about these two men. And there's a lot of articles and things, but I did not look up birth or death certificates.
Yeah, and even then, it's like it would be so difficult to know whether you were looking at the right one.
I know,
names, like it's not, yeah.
Yeah. But yes. But as far as I've seen, like, because I've seen articles wherein they're quoting this interview with him, and like New York Times articles, things like that. Like, I'm like, I assume that you've done your research.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and if a death I imagine, I don't think that would, I think it's probably, like, he probably did die, but
yes.
the circumstances have
exactly,
been
that's what I mean. The circumstances, how could you, I cannot say for sure, but I like the story.
We're here to entertain, kids. Are
exactly.
you not entertained?
Yeah. So, since then, workers have been advised not to clear the tree, and it can still be found on the table this day, which we saw. And I don't recommend that you try to move it yourself. Several people have said that they've tried to move the tree jokingly or just to see what would happen, and say that they were grabbed around the chest and given the same warning that next time you die. And they said also, as they fled the scene, they could hear unearthly sobs and wicked laughter. That is the story of Picnic Bench 29. I could not go to that one. Unfortunately, the other two are close to each other, but this one is not. This one's all the way on the other side.
Wouldn't. I don't know that I would get within 20 feet of that thing.
I know. It's too much.
Just on the off chance that
right.
There's just, it's not, what risk is that worth? Just to be a tree? Doesn't seem worth it.
Yes. Man. So now let's circle back to where we started, with the ghost of Don Antonio Feliz himself. According to the legend, Don Feliz's spirit still roams Griffith Park, forever bound to the land he once owned and lost for his family. He is said to ride on horseback throughout the park's winding trails, frightening unsuspecting visitors in the dead of night. Witnesses have reported sightings of a spectral horseman dressed up in old-fashioned attire and surrounded by an ethereal glow, galloping through the park's shadowy forests and moonlit meadows. Some claim to have heard the sound of hoofbeats echoing through the darkness, accompanied by wailing. And I can't help but wonder if his spirit wanders the park, protecting it from those who would steal or misuse the land. Maybe he feels compelled to do this because he couldn't protect it in his final moments. Whether his spirit rides the park's trails as the guardian of its legacy or as a restless spirit seeking redemption is a question that we might not ever have answered. And lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit, not too much, because there's not a whole lot. We did visit the abandoned zoo as well. So there's an abandoned zoo in Griffith Park, and it was not a great park. We saw this picture, and it's crazy. There's a polar bear. They had a polar bear in there, and it's a small enclosure, and the polar bear would just walk, and there's literally just a fence, probably like up to your shoulders, between you and the polar bear. I wouldn't want to be there, but so it was a lot of that. The enclosures are teeny tiny, which you'll see when I show the next video. But it's really interesting place to visit. So let's take a look at the zoo. Oh, and just so you know, if you're listening, David was telling me that there is a little echo on the video because I'm leaving my mixer on so we can comment. So if you're a little echo, that's fine. He said it's not bad. So let me know if it's terrible. I'll turn us off. But all right, so here we go. This is the abandoned Griffith Park Zoo. So we're walking around the abandoned zoo at Griffith Park, and we just got to this smaller area, and the ghost radar said buried right when we started walking towards this concrete area, and then bite. Interesting for a zoo.
Equally.
All right, let's see. In the last area, it told us to avoid. I walked up to the stairs, and it said avoid, so I didn't go any further. Let's see if we get anything over here.
Avoid.
Right. These stairs are really wet. Be careful. All right. So how do people get in there? Obviously they get in there because there's all kinds of graffiti.
Really, really long-range spray cans.
It actually smells like fresh paint.
Either that or the ghosts do it.
Oh,
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody was just in there.
So if our smell-o-vision was working on what we're filming, you would smell it too, audience.
Yeah, we gotta get better at that.
I mean, they did it in Futurama.
Yeah, why not? Why can't we do that?
The smelloscope.
So is there somebody buried here? Look, the ghost came back.
Oh.
Somebody or something.
I mean,
buried.
why else would there be a concrete pad here?
Yeah, no other logical explanation.
Hiding it from the FBI.
Alright, let's check out this last area. Oh yeah, and then in the last area too, we were in there alone and then these two people walked in and it said couple.
Couple.
So we know the ghost can count.
Yeah. Alright, this area looks interesting.
Look, more pads.
Yeah, is there anything else buried here?
Dirt.
This is cool though. Oh, two things popped up. Oh, one just went away. Okay, let's see if they say anything. It's interesting how it's all really similar.
I guess I figured the animals wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Oh, these poor animals. They didn't have big enough enclosures.
I think that's why the zoo closed.
Yeah, it wasn't built well, and then they built the new zoo. Ooh. That's interesting. I wonder what was here. I wonder if we could look it up and find out what all the animals were.
Well, it wasn't colorblind, that's for sure. Judging from that door.
Well, let's keep going.
Okay.
The ghost radar has been pretty quiet here.
Probably because there's not much room here.
How do we get out of here safely?
Back the way we came?
Oh, it said visit.
Oh. Oh wait, can we go? This might be a good option here.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Thanks. Thanks. All right, here we go. Ooh. That was a good jump.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Any more? I guess we go around this way. See how this, you know what we need now? We need a steady cam.
Yeah.
Oh, we get those helmet cameras like they have on. That's a, oh, it's a club.
Club.
So you know. Oh yeah, look, there would have been animals on display.
Yeah.
Who wants to go to a club?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking that it's an animal club, but
Yeah,
then I
these are
thought,
really small.
what if it was like a club that they used on the animals?
Chief.
And then I was sad.
I thought it said Chinese.
I thought it said cheese.
So I'm thinking it's an animal club.
Trying to figure out what
but I
that
can't-
meant.
I know. Yeah. Seems like this really wasn't built. Well, I read that there was somebody who was in film, I forget his name right now, had donated a bunch of animals to the zoo after they finished filming to try and help develop it, but they ultimately just needed
So that's
to
what
redo
you
the
need
whole
when the
thing.
paddocks are too small, is more animals.
Yeah. All right, so here's the backside.
Ever been to Disneyland, seen the backside of water? Well, now you're seeing the backside of the zoo.
Yeah. So what if people just like scale this fence?
Could be. But there's lock gates up at this end too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's one of the doors.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, those poor animals.
But I mean, now if you can get in there, it doesn't look like those are locked. Virtual unseen. I wonder what that means.
Ghosts.
Everybody apparently is virtually unseen. That's really deep.
What year did it
Especially
close?
for a ghost.
I
I
know.
think in the 60s.
I'm impressed.
Oh, you missed a cool quote there. I'll tell you what is it. Oh, no, not at all. So the last part, there was a graffiti. It said virtual unseen. And I said, I wonder what that means. And David said, well, ghosts are virtually unseen. And then right when he said that, the radar said everyone. And I was like, everyone is virtually unseen. Oh,
it's profound.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, that's deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Existential crisis.
I know. Apparently, ghosts can have existential crises as well. Crises. Wow. So it is said that the animals still haunt the zoo. People who walk through there at night say that they can hear animals growling or crying out from the cages. It's really sad. They started with about 15 animals, and more were donated. Like I said, there was the polar bear. There was a camel who had a severe spinal injury during transportation. So his hump was a little deformed, and apparently it was a favorite there. Walt Disney had animators go to the zoo and watch the animals, learn how to draw them. But eventually, thankfully, as they got more animals, thanks for reminding me. Somebody said the volume got really low. There you go. Thankfully, as they got more and more animals, they realized that the enclosures were not big enough. They didn't have enough space. So they opened what is now the LA Zoo and transferred all of them over. So that's great. So with that, I will start to wrap up. The legend of Don Felice's ghost serves as a reminder of the park's rich history. As visitors explore Griffith Park's hidden corners and forgotten pathways, they're reminded that the past is never truly gone, and buried doesn't mean they're gone. The spirits of the past may still walk among us, their stories waiting to be discovered by those who dare to listen to their call. Will you be one of them? Until then, Griffith Park and its haunted legacy will forever remain a magical mystery. That is the story of Griffith Park.
Amanda Benjamin, ladies and gentlemen. Love it. I had heard, that I'd heard, I didn't know specific stories, but like about the merry-go-round and the zoo. But such great research and storytelling. Thank you for sharing that with us, Amanda.
I agree. I've always heard there's like weird and interesting stories surrounding it, but I never knew any details. That's quite a beginning.
A lot more.
Yeah, I imagine in it sort of like thematically, this is how I feel when I read the history of a place. I mean, places have really strange and complex backstories, and we rarely get those when we visit them. We get like the pristine, managed, organized version of whatever it is now, whether it's a park or a national park or a house museum or whatever.
Yeah.
But some of really iconic places in the United States have some pretty wild, chaotic, dark histories. And so that's cool to like see it laid out in the timeline and everything.
It's great to think like everywhere has a history, and you can't take a minute to learn the history of everywhere you go. But
I know.
Learning fun. The history of places that you drive through often is pretty cool.
I was gonna say, it's really interesting when you think, because a lot of times we'll go through places, like you said, like we drive by and you never consider what might have happened right there.
That is, like every square. I mean, something's happened everywhere. So whether it's a road or a park or, it's you'd never have time to research them all, but it's really fun to like take a beat sometimes and deep dive into one specific spot. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, well, we'll continue to do that throughout these episodes, or this episode, these podcast episodes. But Amanda, you're not off the hook quite yet.
No.
Because we still As we mix in the music with the storytelling on this show, what came to mind when we were doing Los Angeles Haunts for you musically?
Yes. Oh, I had a little trouble. I think you touched on that too. You were like, oh man, we're like, how do I do another song
Scraping
that's
the bottom here, yeah.
But I was like, well, I kind of want to do an LA song. So I was like, we talk about LA Hunts. So I was thinking about LA songs. And what's funny, the reason it came to my head was that we're doing at school, we have a little before school chorus, and our spring concert theme is rock and roll. And I laughed because we were talking about things to do, and we're always like, what can we do that's rock and roll, but also school appropriate, but also fun enough for the kids and not too dark. And I laughed because we started kind of going down the rabbit hole. And then I was like, what song just popped in my head? And I was like, Under a Bridge. And she's like, we can't do that. And I was like, I know, but now it's stuck in my head. And so I had it in my head for like a couple weeks, just kept going through. And then I was like, oh man, that's the perfect song. Haunting LA song.
Yes.
Under a Bridge.
Well, don't forget to plug in your guitar.
Yes.
Told you I'd remind you.
I know. Thank you. I've done that a couple times now. So I told Paul when we started, I said, don't let me forget this time.
And don't make my mistake and forget a capo if you need one.
Oh, yeah. I purposefully did not use one. I was like, the key's fine.
But here on our LA Haunts episode, Amanda Benjamin performs live for you Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge.
All right. Well, here we go. Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I drive on her streets 'cause she's my companion.
Love the chill version.
I always love
the coffee shop red hot chili.
I always love the coffee shops.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, it was so loud in my ears. I don't know about for you guys. I was like, wow, it's way louder than when we sound checked it. So hopefully
It sounded good from the
okay, that's good. I was like,
No, it sounded great.
Good.
But reinventing the rock stars in the coffee style, coffee shop style. You're so good at that. Give it one more time for Amanda. All right, and we're here for the history, and we're so interested to hear what tugged on your shirt from behind, and you turned around and nothing was there. When you heard it was
happened a lot. That happens a lot to me.
That happens to me at school. That's happened to me at school in my classroom, and we have an auditorium that's real creepy when the lights are all out. Oh man. But that happened to me. I've turned around and been like, "You guys stop tugging on my shirt." And I'm like, "Oh."
And there's nobody there.
It's when you tell them to stop and they keep going. That's when you need to be worried.
Yeah.
But,
that's an aggressive one.
Yeah. When we welcome it, like when we ask LA when the topic of LA haunts tugged on your shirt from behind, what was it?
Well, I'm not there like you guys are. So for me, it was a little difficult to look at it geographically, or I've only been to LA a couple of times. I couldn't really pull from somewhere I've been. I did look into Musso and Frank's being haunted because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a very important movie to me. And when we were in LA a couple of years ago, we went to eat there because we had to because of the movie. But there wasn't enough information about the ghosts there, so I had to let that go. I also looked into a haunted forest and the Cobb Estate, there's a lot of stories. That got a little bit into demonology, and I was not interested in talking about a demon on a podcast and haunting.
I mean, was it a demon or was it a sub-demon?
Yeah,
that's right. It depends on what package they got.
I'm okay with the sub-demons.
So the sub-demons don't really follow you home or anything.
They're fine.
I listened to one spooky podcast that once claimed that after they did an episode on demons, they had all their equipment malfunction things. So I just wasn't interested in bringing that energy to anybody in this scenario. So I was true to myself, and I searched for sites of 19th century history. So I looked, oldest home in LA, and that's an adobe, and that was interesting. Thought about that. Ran into a bunch of the house museums. I love a house museum. And so many of them were the Banning House, the Pico House, and nothing really grabbed me. And then I see a little line on a search result on Google, and it says Civil War in California.
Ooh.
And I never thought about this. And I will tell you, I studied Southern history in my PhD program for years. I have researched and read about the history of slavery, emancipation, Reconstruction, Civil War for years. And I never have read about what happened in California, nor thought that anything really of significance would. And of course, California didn't even become a state until 1850. But because it becomes a state in 1850, it enters into this very ripe debate, obviously, about slavery. In school, we get Compromise of 1850 and such. And so it's, ingrained in us from the moment we start studying U.S. history that this is a very fraught and up for debate time. Like if a state enters a union at this time, the question of slavery looms large. And so I found the drum barracks of Wilmington, which is down by close to Long Beach. And it still has one surviving structure. And I want to talk a little bit about Camp Drum, as it's known. The Drum Barracks Civil War Museum is what it is now, but it's the last remaining original Civil War era military facility that's in Los Angeles. Wow. And it's in the area of Wilmington, and we'll talk about who named it that. But and apparently it's extremely haunted. So here we go. And it has been designated as a historical landmark as well, so it is protected. So a short history lesson so that we can understand who these ghosts are. When the Civil War broke out, obviously in 1861, in April, we're right there now, and this is got to be an episode in the future, but I don't know if you guys have ever looked down the list of horrific things that have happened in mid-April in US history, global history. It's wild. It'll curl your toes. So
and you tell us this on April 7th.
I know. I'm so sorry, but we are in
we're in the bad times. Oh God.
We're in the zone right now. I was talking to the woman checking me out at Whole Foods yesterday about this because she also brought it up to me. So the energy has been around this. But between April 8th, so sorry, tomorrow, and I think something like April 19th, the events that have happened, particularly in U.S. history, we're talking assassination of Lincoln, start of the Civil War, sinking of Titanic, as we know well. So, so obviously Civil War starts in April.
Mm-hmm.
And in California, there is a concern that representatives of the southern states and the Confederacy and recent arrivals from the southern state into California would put pressure on residents there to support the Confederacy. John C. Breckinridge had received a lot of votes in the 1860 presidential election. There was definitely a group of secessionists that lived in California. There was one group that would hold public drills in El Monte, California. And so there was this concern that the Confederacy would take on some sort of hold in California. And that's why I love this story too, because it is completely a story of California and the Union saying, no way are slaveholders or the influence of slavery going to infiltrate this area. We have to make sure that we win this war. Phineas Banning, best name ever, is the founder of Wilmington, where the barracks are, where they technically are. It's a little area. You can see it on the map now if you Google it. He named it after Wilmington, Delaware, which is where he was from. But he wrote a letter to President Lincoln advising that the Union would lose California, possibly, unless some sort of provision was made to squash down this pro-Confederacy sentiment. Now, side note, Phineas Banning's house is also haunted, and I don't have a ton of time to talk about it because I want to talk about the Civil War barracks. But Banning was known as the father of the Port of Los Angeles. He was the founder of the town of Wilmington, as I just mentioned, and he laid down the foundations for Los Angeles and all of the surrounding areas as a very busy port city. He was in the freighting business. He operated a stagecoach line as well. So he was mega loaded and founded many key areas that we are talking about. So in 1861, there were existing military operations in the area. It was called Camp Latham, but it didn't seem large enough or workable enough to keep a regiment of men that could train, that could send out troops if there were battles or skirmishes in the area as the war moved west. And so they began construction on what would become Camp Drum, or the Drum Barracks. It was built between 1862 and 1863 at the cost of $1 million, a lot of money at the time. And it had 19 buildings, over 60 acres in Wilmington, and another 37 acres near the harbor. So this was a huge area. I had never heard of this. Like, it's wild. But by March 1864, everybody had encamped at the Drum Barracks, is what they started to call it. Now, it got its name after a colonel named Richard C. Drum, who apparently never stepped foot there and never went on to any particular fame or achievement. So I think people were very confused about I mean, I'm sure he was a great guy, but
Yep.
people were very confused about the naming of it as Camp Drum.
But at least he was actually a colonel, unlike
That's-
J. Griffith.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was like, nah, I'm just going to call myself colonel.
I think it was, well, and I didn't want to interrupt when you were saying that earlier, but I think it was pretty common back then for people to do that. Oh, Paul's pulled it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so there it is. So that's the surviving structure, which
Okay.
was a junior officer's quarters, which was just one of, like I said, all of these different buildings. So it was the headquarters of the District of Southern California. It was home to the California Column. It was managed by a colonel named James Henry Carleton when it first opened. And between 2,000 and 7,000 soldiers were stationed at Camp Drum. So Wilmington becomes a really thriving community because of this, and actually had a larger population than Los Angeles at this time. Texas volunteers in 1862 had taken control of parts of the New Mexico territory for the Confederacy, and this is totally just, very quick Civil War history. But they were ordered, Carleton and all of the men at Camp Drum were ordered to retake that territory. So over 2,000 soldiers from Camp Drum fought the Battle of Pichaco Pass. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was the westernmost battle of the Civil War. And I have never looked into that. So that was fun to research. So it was used as a site to, quell all of this Confederate sympathy, to manage and train troops. And one of the men that was brought in was Colonel Curtis. Oh my gosh, what was his first name? I've got James. That's right. There's a lot of James.
Yeah.
Was James Curtis, and he is going to factor into our hauntings here in a moment. So it was a very successful military encampment. After the Civil War, it remained active a little bit into the 1870s, but eventually it really wasn't needed, given that the war was over and skirmishes with Native Americans were becoming less and less frequent. That's a whole nother history, obviously. And so it went into disrepair. It became a school at one point. At one point, it was owned by the Methodist Church, I believe. And through this process, a lot of the buildings were torn down. And what is surviving now is what Paul just showed us. It's the junior officers' quarters. It's a fairly lovely looking house that's white and it's sort of green gabled. And that remains because a group of local citizens in 1963, as these things typically happen, it was scheduled for demolition, even though it had been marked as a historic site. But they raised some money, they got an organization together, and they saved it. And so it became a museum. And it's owned by the city of Los Angeles, which will also factor into our ghost stories. So the museum has a lot of different artifacts. It has Gatling guns and things like that, bits of military history that have been brought in from other places. And I thought that when I looked at this, it would be the objects that would be haunted, but that's not really what's going on at all. So here we go with some of the reported spirits that still inhabit the drum barracks. The most interesting thing about doing this research is, did you guys ever watch Unsolved Mysteries?
Oh, yeah.
When you were, okay.
Of course,
Definitely.
yeah.
So I found an episode of Unsolved Mysteries from 1992
Yes.
that features the drum barracks. And so I was able to watch with like the big 90s hair and the great 90s glasses and everything. The caretaker at the time and the woman who managed the museum at the time tell some of these stories in the early 90s. And it really made me realize that going back to watch old Unsolved Mysteries on YouTube would not be a waste of my time. It was incredible.
Definitely not.
Like the reenactments are so detailed and cheesy and corny. So the caretaker at the time in the 90s, when they interviewed him, he said what a lot of people say about the drum barracks and a lot of the accounts I read, which is that he feels comfortable with the ghosts but it's sort of uncomfortable feeling. And that the minute you walk into the drum barracks, you're immediately overtaken by the feel of spirits in the room, pressure on you. You can hear conversation sort of out of the corner, right out of the corner of where you can see and hear, and you can't quite figure out what anybody is saying, whispered voices. The curators that have worked there and the caretakers that have worked there will lock the rooms at night and turn out all the lights. And the next morning, certain lights will be on in the parlor room where the officers used to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 2 specific shades that will be drawn back up in the middle of the night. But one of the most compelling stories is the story of an exterminator who worked for the city of Los Angeles. And he went one morning to do his work when nobody else was there. The caretaker, I believe, was outside doing some lawn care. And so the exterminator goes inside and he's kneeling kind of into a cabinet to do some of his work, and he's spraying and things like this. And he hears a man behind him, and the man says, "I need some water." And so in his mind, he's thinking, "Oh, I'm in the way of the sink, and so I need to get out of the way. The caretaker is back in the house and he needs water." And so he turns around, and it's not the caretaker, but a full-bodied apparition of a colonel in Civil War regalia.
Why is it always a
And-
colonel?
I know.
I'm just
Well, that's what I was
saying.
thinking when you did your story. I was like, people are going to think we planned some sort of colonel theme. And what's interesting too is part of your story was in the 1860s. So once again,
Yes.
accidentally, we sort of like lined up.
I know. I wonder if there's a fashion of that, like naming themselves colonel.
Well, this guy really was a colonel, I believe, because
don't
they
know.
did identify him. So apparently he asked the exterminator, he said, "Have you seen Maria?" And asked this question a couple of times and then disappeared. So there's a couple of things going on here. There was a man named Colonel James Curtis, like I mentioned, who was stationed at Fort Drum in 1863, 1864. Now, I couldn't find it. I did some research. I spent a lot of time on newspapers.com and some other sites and anything I could access archivally online. There was no Maria that I could figure out was
Okay.
connected to him directly. But what's interesting is that in a couple of the documentaries about the drum barracks, there is the mention that a psychic visited in the early 90s. And when she went through the home, she claims that there was an apparition, or, I guess she saw in her mind's eye, a colonel, commander, someone with regalia on sitting by the fire. And he said, "I'm in pain. I need to get closer to the fire to get warm." And the staff of the drum barracks did research after this happened and found out that Colonel Curtis had been injured in some Native American skirmishes in the 1850s, and he had frostbite on one of his feet. And he would wear a boot that was purposely smaller than it needed to be for like a compression so that he could walk properly, but he had damaged his foot so badly in this frostbite incident. And so that sort of struck them at the drum barracks, thinking like, wow, the psychic has really picked up on something very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So when they put that together, they started to kind of name this apparition that would show up at the drum barracks Colonel Curtis, because it very obviously seems to be him with the foot. Now, I did some research into Maria, and I was thinking, like, I've got to figure out who Maria is, because she's reported at the drum barracks all the time. She's known as the lady of the house. She is apparently a woman in 1860s dress. She's often sighted on the porch, coming down the stairs. She talks to people. And so I did this deep dive into Marias in Wilmington
Mm-hmm.
in the 1860s. And there was a woman named Maria Dolores Simona Dominguez de Watson, which is, that's a name, right? And she was a Rancho San Pedro land heiress. She had a grand home in Wilmington. Her father had been, like you were talking about earlier, it ties in with your story, like a landowner before statehood, and the family had worked to keep this land within the family. But she had a grand home. She would have socialized with Phineas Banning and his stately home and his society. And I found something else. So I found an article. This is from 1866 in March. So this would have been after the war. It's entitled Grand Party. This is from the Wilmington Journal. While Colonel Curtis was in command at Drum Barracks, it became noted for its sociable parties, and it was feared that similar pleasant gatherings would never be witnessed at this point or at this post. On last Saturday evening, however, all such fears were dispelled. And it goes on to describe these gorgeous, huge parties that would happen at the barracks. 2 large rooms crowded with the fair of Los Angeles County and the brave of this locality, and richly dressed with bands playing. And I won't read the whole thing, but now I think, and tell me if you think this is just too much of a stretch, but I think Colonel Curtis is there. He didn't die there. He lived to be like 90 and he died in Oklahoma, I think. He, I think, is there because that was a time of his life where he felt in control, in command, literally and figuratively. Right. And according to these newspaper articles, was celebrating and hosting these grand society parties with Phineas Banning. So there's the connection there. And I wonder if Maria is the society Maria who would have been at these parties. And the question is, have you seen Maria? Because she would have known everybody. And according to what I read about her, was sort of involved in every layer of the community.
Right.
So yeah. So I don't know. Is that crazy? I sort of went down a rabbit hole and I constructed this whole story. Does it sound bad? I don't know.
The research. No, I think there's definitely something to be said for it, and I'll talk about it a lot during my stories. Yeah. But haunting a place, not because you died there or not because something tragic happened there, but because it's where you would want to be in your own paradise. Returning to the time, and sometimes you'll slip through the time, but maybe you can relive the energy that echoes off those walls.
Yeah, and it's the junior officers' quarters that survive. It was probably a place where there were a lot of gatherings, a lot of drinking, a lot of, the officers kind of sitting back and communicating with one another, whether it was about a stressful situation or maybe celebratory things. But I wonder if some of it is residual energy of just, he felt in command of this place. Like one of the people interviewed said that they walked in and happened upon a party basically happening where a bunch of the officers were sitting around one of the parlor tables. And I don't know if you've ever heard of stories like this where there's sort of a momentary time slip. I think we talked about it in our last episode we did together, which was about time slips. But I have heard and read many stories of very momentary ones where someone will, walk into their kitchen and see someone at their sink. That person turns around and boom, it's all gone. And who was the ghost, right?
Right.
But I have heard of many of these where someone will be at an old hotel, some sort of old building, and they will just stumble upon a party from many moons ago and witness it for a few seconds and then snap, it's gone again. And so I think that's what's going on here. It's a lot of residual energy. And it definitely sounds to me like Curtis is there sort of watching over his spot that he was in control of. So it's one of those places where the stories are so repetitive and consistent. And whether it was the documentary episodes that I watched, whether it was the YouTube, ones I stumbled upon, or the Reddit threads, it all seemed to it all seemed to coincide, and all the stories seemed very similar. And so I do think there's something to Colonel Curtis being there. And the other report is a child who hangs out on the staircase and bounces the ball a lot, like against the wall. And nobody who's investigated this place can figure out who that child might be or why he would be there. It never was a primary school or anything like that, but I guess it could be someone's child who was just on site, or maybe came to a party.
Yeah. That was my thought exactly. It's like a kid at a party full of adults and they're like, what am I supposed to do? I'm gonna,
and they're bored.
Ball,
and so they've just got the ball going. So, to me, this is my favorite. It's my favorite type of story in this realm, when I get a chance to, sort of lock into history that I didn't know about, and maybe tie reports of apparitions or spirits into actual historical figures and go digging and do some research. So it was really fun to do that. And I think nobody associates California with the Civil War, but it's a pretty crucial spot for the Union to maintain their control in that part of the country.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an important history, and I'm glad that the museum is open and people are able to go and experience that. But yeah, I think Colonel Curtis is sitting by the fire with his foot that hurts, and he's, by all accounts, kind of monitoring everybody that comes in and out, and apparently needs water. So there you go.
Apparently.
I love that you were able to connect those dots, like doing research.
I know, that's so cool.
It's amazing. And it's like, because so many of what I was finding, and they're all ghost stories, and it's like you go to search for it, like the people having an amorous moment on the table, and you can't really find anything, but these are stories that have been passed down.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I'll be bringing to the table. But for you to be able to like go through the research and find the records and like form your own hypothesis of who these people are and why they're there, that's so cool.
Yeah, when I found the article about Colonel Curtis's like grand parties that he threw, it really was, and this is why I do what I do, and I have, just still like a giddy excitement when I read and when I research. I got so excited when I found that, because it brings someone immediately to life when you see something like that on a page. And it also is, I would venture every historian is like this, but it's why we do it. That moment of discovery when you find a little nugget that might tie something together. And I was certain I was going to find Maria. I was certain I was going to definitively find Maria. You should have seen my search combinations on terms and names. And I just like, there's a surgeon. He's mentioned in this article, V. Gellick. He was a surgeon that was brought in. I believe he was from Germany, and he worked at the barracks. And he supposedly maybe haunts it too, although I couldn't find a lot of info about it, so I didn't want to speculate too much. But I was like, oh gosh, what if his wife was Maria? So then I went down this long rabbit hole of finding him and his grave, and he had 3 wives, and who were his wives. And so, I think when a place is supposedly haunted, obviously, I mean, you guys talk about this a lot. It says a lot about not only that specific time and place, but who's interpreting that time and place. And, for example, in the 90s, you've got a huge wave of Civil War interest, documentaries coming out, so I think a place like that all of these ghost shows hit it in the 90s is not surprising. But what's interesting is that these stories continue. If you search on Reddit and you look at recent threads, all of the stories from the drum barracks are repetitive and similar, and they seem pretty consistent. So I think they're still there. So people should go and take the ghost app.
Yes.
We should.
Yes.
I'll be at the Queen Mary next weekend, maybe, because it's like stone's throw away from the Queen Mary.
Yeah. You should take the ghost radar and just do like 10 minutes and see if you just call for Colonel Curtis and tell him I sent you.
Wait, you said the name of the Maria you found, and I was muted, but I said, I'm going to have you write that one down. but
Yes.
you're gonna have to
Oh,
you're gonna have
deep
to
cut.
write
There.
me send me the name of that Maria again,
Yes.
and I'll go to the front gates of the barracks and shout it out.
Yes.
You can call for her by her 8 names
Yes.
and see if she answers. So I don't know, I'll never know the answer, but in my mind, I constructed this society of Civil War era California where, Phineas Banning and this Maria and Colonel Curtis are just they run the party scene, and that's the echoes. And if you believe in stone tape theory, it's like that's the tape that's playing at the officers' quarters, right? Is like this, they're planning a party or they're coming off a party, and it seems like not scary energy at all. Like everybody that accounts for these stories of the drum barrack says it's very comfortable. It's not creepy at all.
Yeah.
Which I think it really attracted me to telling this story too, because not all hauntings are super dark, super scary, bloody. It sort of seems like people that just want to hang out there because it represented a meaningful time in their lives.
Could you, just in case
that.
any of our listeners don't know, could you explain the stone tape theory?
Yeah. So it's and it's actually really supported by quite a bit of research. And actually Carolyn Swift Jones that I mentioned, who I take my mediumship courses from, she is a proponent of this theory. So it is essentially the idea that rock, stone, slate, any very permanent materials of the earth have always been here. And while they may not have personalities, they don't have like a brain or heartbeat, that sort of thing, they do have a memory and they do have emotion. And so over the course of time, as things have happened, whether it be an altercation, a violent act, when something very specific happens, a lot of repetitive actions happen at a place, that the earth is actually recording it. And so that a lot of hauntings that happen, apparitions that are seen, spirits that are reported, are really just the earth replaying what has happened. It's brought up a lot in hauntings that are just auditory. Many people that research this believe that when you have a haunting where a word is being repeated a lot or noises are being repeated a lot, that's stone tape. That's the stone tape replaying itself. So
Like when they said, "Next you die," or "Leave
yes,
us
exactly.
alone."
No,
Leave
I mean
us
really, yeah.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And that it's not necessarily always an active haunting, but it could just be a replay of the earth, essentially. And what we do in the mediumship training, it may sound wacky, but a lot of it is, I don't have a rock right here. I'll just use my AirPods case. But a lot of what we'll do is we'll take a stone, a rock, some sort of like pretty permanent part of the earth. And if you hold it and you talk to it, and you meditate to feel its energies, you will hear things and you will feel things. And I've experienced it. It's very real. And so the idea is that, rock, stone basically holds all the earth's secrets.
I first ever heard about that on our episode with Rosa.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like,
we talked about past lives, and she's an astrophysicist, and she told us about that, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
like,
because
first
at
time
some
I ever
point
heard it.
she said that one of her clients had, or somebody, I forget if it was her client or not, but somebody was talking about their past life as a rock, and I was like, wait a minute, back up.
That's pretty.
And then she said, oh yeah, and then she started talking about rocks have their own energy and.
Oh yeah, they have, I don't know how deeply I believe about them having necessarily like feelings and such, but I do feel like energy is stored there. And if you think about it in a physics sense, it's really, we talked about this last time with time slips too. I mean, it's not that far of a jump to imagine. I mean, energy has to go somewhere, and I don't think it's that far-fetched to believe that a material like stone could hold on to energies or sounds or things like that. And so, so I definitely think it's a repetitive, residual energy that's going on at the drum barracks. And I think hauntings tend to fall into different categories. That's the one that I would put it in. And speaking of past lives, you guys should have, I've had 2 done. I'm going to do regressions done. I'm going to do another one this summer. We should all have them done and then do an episode and talk about it. That's
Or do them live on the episode.
Oh, wow.
So were you on Titanic is the question.
I know.
no. And
Okay.
that would have been really low hanging fruit. That's what my husband said. He was like, if she was able to Google people that she was about to have an appointment with, surely she would tell you were on Titanic. But no sense of Titanic. But interestingly enough, I think Paul knows this about me. I'm also obsessed with the lost colony of Roanoke.
Oh, yeah.
And she did put me there. And there's no way she could have known about my interest in it. That's not like public facing at all. My interest in that is just kind of a private, more,
Right.
personal hobby kind of thing.
I did an
But
episode on Roanoke.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think that's when I originally messaged Paul. Well, we already knew each other, but I messaged him and was like, we have to collab on something involving this because when I saw that you guys did a Roanoke episode, that's my jam. But yeah, she put me there, which was intriguing in great detail.
Mhm.
And when she started describing it, I said, it sounds like you're describing like the settlers of the lost colony of Roanoke, and her face just sort of anyway. So I don't know, because she just is using like the visualizations that she sees. But anyway,
Cool.
I'm babbling now. But that's but it was fun to read through this one and do a little bit of research because it hit on a lot of like historical themes that I'm obviously very interested in.
And stuff I had never heard about. We were saying in the live chat, like I had no idea the Civil War reached this far west.
I was like,
I
what are
don't
they
think I
teaching
ever
us
heard
in
that.
school?
No, I didn't either. And it sounds like I'd have to do more reading to say this with any authority, but it sounds like the drum barracks existence very much helped like Union sentiment stay as strong as it needed to stay in the western part of the United States and might have helped win the war. So it's a pretty crucial spot. I mean, people, if you live that way, go see it. I mean, I definitely want to visit, the next time I'm out that way, but it seems like a pretty cool historical site to, like just spend a couple of hours at.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And thank you for telling us all about it, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for LA Beadles.
Yay.
Dr. Beadles.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah. Credit where credit's due.
Doctor of History. All right. Well, as we talked about haunted Los Angeles locations, my mind immediately, of course, went to Hollywood because how many ghost tours could you find to go on in Hollywood? I think our friend Emily Thatcher, who's sponsored, it's one of our Patreons and sponsored most of our first season, recently went on an LA ghost tour as well. I know she did Orange County, but I was thinking old Hollywood because I just, from my earliest memories, I always just have been I don't want to say obsessed, but romantically in love with the glitz of Hollywood, the tuxedos, the black and white photos, the Rat Pack, James Dean. I just always have been drawn to it. And I remember watching James Dean movies. And when I first saw Rebel Without a Cause, I made a connection, not with Jimmy Dean, but his co-star, Natalie Wood. I know LA loves her some Leo, but do you guys have like Hollywood figures that you feel like inexplicably connected to, whether it's like historical Hollywood or a movie star out there right now that you feel like, were we friends in another time?
Do you know what's funny is I've always actually felt connected to Natalie Wood.
Really?
People always used to tell me like, oh, they'd be like, oh yeah, you look like Natalie Wood when I was a teenager. And I played Maria in West Side Story. And I've always, like, I should say, like, when we went on the cruise, right? I'd never been on a cruise. And I'm like, oh my God, open water. It's so scary in the middle of the ocean, which she was also like that.
You need a past life regression.
I know.
You can figure this out.
I know. So it's so funny. That's one of them for sure.
I think mine is Lucille Ball. And I, come to think of it, I now we just have to do this again. Because come to think of it, I should have done like her LA home, because I'm pretty sure it's reported to be haunted, as many movie star homes are. But yeah, I've always felt this very surreal connection with her. I grew up watching I Love Lucy reruns, and they were really important to me. And I realized later in life that I picked up a lot of weird little tics and things from that show. Like one Christmas a couple of years ago, we got really into rewatching episodes of I Love Lucy with the kids, and my dad likes it. He's older, so he like entertains him. And there was one episode where she takes salt, she's cooking, and she throws it over her shoulder really violently. And my husband looked at me and he was like, "You do that? Like you do that?" And so I think I picked up some stuff from watching so much of it as a kid, but her story is just always just breaks my heart. And like her life was so difficult, but she brought people so much joy. So anyway, very long answer to your question, but yeah, I think mine for that would be Lucille Ball.
I do often find myself going, ooh.
Yes, stuff like that too. Like just her facial reactions and things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whenever when I first watched Rebel Without a Cause, I was like, I know this person. Like, I don't know if like a certain part of her just reminded me of my mother. But then watching her in other films, I was just like, I feel like we were friends. I feel like I had a relationship with her. Not like a relationship, but like I knew her as like on a personal level at some point in the universe. And I always enjoyed watching her movies. I didn't do a whole lot of like reading up about her life. I wasn't so much, I guess, drawn to or interested to learn more about her. I don't know why, but I always enjoyed her movies. And I ended up going to UCLA to study theater. And one day when I was there, my friends and I went to go see Zoolander. We walked a few blocks down from my dorms on campus through Westwood to a movie theater. And as we're walking into the movie theater, I look down this alley and I go, "Is that a cemetery? I'm gonna have to check that out like after we watch the movie." So we go watch the movie and we come out and my friends are like, "We're gonna go eat." And I said, "Great, I'll catch up with you later. I need to check this out." So I go and I walk over and I find this. I had no idea it was right there in the middle of Westwood. It's called the Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park and Mortuary. And I'll zoom out here on the map. You can see like it's just in the middle of everything and hidden away. Here's UCLA up at the top and the big LA National Cemetery that you see when you're driving down the 405. But on the main strip in Westwood, hidden between buildings, like these are big, where can I get I can't get the 3D image, but these are big buildings surrounding it. I'll drop the little guy here right into the mortuary and kind of do a pan around where you see it's not on a main street. It's just like hidden away between houses and businesses.
Is that people's houses directly across?
Behind. Oh, well, this is the actual mortuary.
Oh, that's still belonging to, that's the mortuary. Okay, never mind.
But on the other side of that wall, it's houses. And then on the other side of this wall, it's businesses, like the movie theater is over here.
Wow.
But I found it and I was just walking around like, what? This is awesome, because just like I love cemeteries and learning about the history. And as I'm walking back, I'm walking across the lawn, just kind of like reading the names and looking around. My sandal gets caught on a lip of something and falls off. And I turn around and I look down and kid you not, this is like one of the bone chilling moments of my life. It's Natalie Wood's headstone. I had no idea like she was there, and I had just literally stumbled across it and I went, whoa, that is wild. And I'll show you what it looks like here today. And I looked down and I was just like, how did I not know she was here, first of all? And secondly, like, it's so random that I bumped into it. And I would end up going back throughout my time at UCLA just to like hang out there. Well, okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about this particular tiny-ish cemetery that's right there in the middle of Westwood. It is actually the home to Marilyn Monroe, Hugh Hefner, Kirk Douglas, Donna Reed, Dean Martin, Natalie Wood, Roy Orbison, Carol O'Connor, Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, Don Knotts, Farrah Fawcett, Rodney Dangerfield, Peggy Lee, Mel Torme, George C. Scott, Burt Lancaster, Peter Falk, Ava Gabor, Florence Henderson, Doris Roberts, Wayne Rogers, Truman Capote. The Armand Hammer family has a mausoleum there in the cemetery. And actually the child star of Poltergeist 1, 2, and 3, her name is Heather O'Rourke.
That's
She's
a
there as
story.
well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. She's she got really sick when she was 12 years old and died really early on, but she's there too.
She had Crohn's disease, right?
Yeah. I guess it's called giardiasis, which was contracted from well water at her family's home in Big Bear.
That's right. And
very sad.
The Poltergeist house is like
in Simi
really
Valley.
Close.
In our hometown.
I know.
And I was going to tell you earlier, LA, next time you're in town, the ranch where they filmed the Manson Ranch for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Like my backyard.
It's like a stone's throw from Amanda's house.
Yeah, I need to do just like a full like only Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tour of LA.
Yeah.
That would be super cool. Yeah, we were there for one day. We did the Academy Museum right when it opened. And then I had planned for us to have all of these elaborate meals at these different places from the movie, but we didn't factor in traffic or how long the museum would take. So we only made it to Musso and Frank's. But I would say that's a pretty good one if I'm going to pick one from the movie. So
yeah. So this became a place where I would go and do homework. It's open 24 hours. So late night, if I wanted to take a walk, I'd go down and visit with Dean Martin, Marilyn Monroe. Hugh wasn't there yet when I was there. He had purchased the plot. What's it called? The drawers that come out. The crypt. Yeah. He had purchased the crypt right next to Marilyn, but he was still alive at the time. But I would hang out there all the time whenever I was reading or learning lines or studying, and it became a spot where I'll drop in whenever I was taking Everly to an audition and we were just early. One of my favorite stories is I was taking Everly to her Yes Day audition, which was in Santa Monica, and we were super early, and that was the first time I took her and I took her to the spot. We took pictures all over, but when we were at Natalie Wood's headstone, this tourist couple came by with their camcorder. They literally still had a camcorder, but they're from like the Midwest, and the guy had mentioned to Everly, you look a lot like a young Natalie Wood from the Christmas movie. Do you know who that is? And Everly said, no, but I'm an actress. And he said, what, really? Can I film her? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he's like, what's your name? And she's like, my name is Everly. And he says, you're an actress? And she said, yeah, I'm on my way to an audition for a movie called Yes Day. And so I always picture this couple like dusting the tape off some years down the line and being like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But so I love visiting this cemetery. And if you haven't been and you live in the Los Angeles area, I would encourage like a visit. It's just so cool to go and find all the celebrity headstones that are there, the final resting places of all these people. But one of the ghost stories for today is several people have reported or said that while they were visiting this cemetery, they would be in the general area. Here's Noah with Marilyn and Hugh.
Oh my gosh, he looks so tiny there.
It was a couple years back, but they'd be in this area of the cemetery, and there's a bench. I'll have to drop the guy off at the bench on the map here, but It was dedicated to Marilyn by her fans, and several reports will say, here's Marilyn and Hugh here, and here is the bench, that if you come late at night, you will see the figure, the ghostly apparition of a glamorous blonde sitting on this bench, looking out, waiting for something or someone. Marilyn Monroe sitting on a bench in the middle of Westwood, just waiting.
Poor Marilyn.
I just got such goosebumps when you said that.
Yeah, she was always waiting for someone to save her, to love her, to.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps. Like I could like see it in my mind's eye when you said that. Like and then it just evoked everything I know about her. Like that. Yeah, I got like full body goosebumps. Just like her. Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, she is probably the hardest working actor, ghost, still working in Hollywood and beyond, as she has been seen other places as well. The next historical landmark we'll visit is called the Hollywood Knickerbocker Hotel, which if you drive through Hollywood, you know the iconic Capitol Records building. This is like right across the parking lot from that building, and the Knickerbocker was actually designed by architect E.M. Fraser and was originally built to be apartments, but the apartment building idea fell through. That never opened, so it was finally completed and rechristened as a hotel. Opened in June of 1929. Old Hollywood, people, and it's still there. According to Wikipedia, the hotel catered to the region's film industry and is the site for some of Hollywood's most famous dramatic moments. On Halloween of 1936, Harry Houdini's widow held her 10th seance to contact him on the roof of the hotel. Legend has it there was a thunderstorm that rained only on the roof of the Knickerbocker that night. And Harry famously, I don't know if you've heard the tales, but he wanted to believe in spiritualism. He wanted to believe in mediums and seances, and the more he dug into it, the more he found that all the mediums and psychics were just frauds. So he said to his wife, when I die, I will find a way to contact you. I will get you a secret message, and you will know that the afterlife is real, because I can do that. So she held seances for him on the anniversary of his death. For 10 years after he died, her final one was there on the roof of the Knickerbocker, where allegedly there was a thunder and rainstorm only on the Knickerbocker Hotel that night. On January 13th of 1943, actress Frances Farmer was arrested in her room at the hotel after failing her to visit with her probation officer. And that was all the scandals on the front pages of the newspapers. D.W. Griffith, not Griffith J.
Not
Griffith.
Not Griffith.
I know.
D.W. Griffith, who was one of the founding fathers of Hollywood, made Birth of a Nation, one of the first color feature sound films, died in the hotel lobby there. It's said he suffered a heart attack right under the main chandelier in the lobby. And there are many reports of the ghost of Rudolph Valentino, one of the first movie stars, being spotted in the lobby. But if you do any research, you'll find that's probably hogwash, because he died before that building was ever built.
There's a good debunk. You gotta throw in a good debunking.
Love it.
Dig deep enough, they're everywhere. But throwing it back to some I Love Lucy, on March 3rd of 1966, veteran character actor William Frawley, who played Fred Mertz in I Love Lucy, he was living at the Knickerbocker and strolling down the street, returning home for the night, where he suffered a major heart attack on the street right outside the doors. The staff dragged him in, where he apparently perished in the lobby there as well. Another lobby death. And where is the story of there it is. In 1962, celebrated Hollywood costume designer Irene Lentz, she had been nominated for several Oscars for her costume designing. She, after her lover had died, she decided to jump from her 11th floor room window of the Knickerbocker, where she landed on the awning, perished, and was not discovered till many hours later because no one knew she was there.
Aww.
And those are some historical moments, but to talk about the ghosts, they say D.W. Griffith, not Griffith, but he can still be seen some days by staff members walking around the lobby looking lost. Irene Lentz, who had jumped out the window, has been seen by staff and guests. They say they see a woman in Hollywood, old period clothing with frazzled hair, staring out of windows. Just staring out of windows in guest rooms and at the end of halls. Whenever someone tries to reach out to her or approach her, she'll fade away. Just staring out the window, looking for the awning, I suppose. But the reason I'm talking about this in this stretch of stories is the Knickerbocker Hotel was apparently where Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio would meet in the bar. There was a backdoor alley kitchen door where they could each go through and hide from the press, and they would get together and have drinks and canoodle, have amorous moments.
A lot of amorous moments that have happened in these stories. You know what? That's what I should have done with the Maria and Colonel Curtis. I should have concocted a story where it was the amorous moment.
They had a
like, where's Maria? He's looking for Maria.
Love affair.
Yeah.
Tryst.
Yes.
Missed the boat.
Rendezvous.
Marilyn and Joe would be their sneaky hideaway, and to this day, staff and guests report that when you go into the female restroom in the bar area, sometimes you will find a glamorous blonde specter staring into the mirror and will fade as you come in. Marilyn. Well, let's go to one last stop for our friend Marilyn, which, actually won't be the last, but we will talk about the next one right across the street from Grauman's Chinese Theater.
Yes.
Is another building that Mr. Grauman helped fund, the Roosevelt Hotel. And this is right smack dab in the heart of Hollywood. It was built in 1926 in what was known as the golden era of the Los Angeles architecture. And it was named after the 26th president of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, to give it just that much more clout. It was actually like bankrolled. They started to build it and then they had financial problems. So a bunch of Hollywood stars were like, we'll help you build it. Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and Sid Grauman, who built the Grauman Theaters, also finished helping getting it built. It cost $2.5 million to build at the time, which today would be about 44, and was just the picture of glamour. I'll show you inside the lobby. It's been, over the years, it went into disarray and then got refurbished and has been restored today to more of the glamour that it once originally was. And it's just beautiful in there. And still, I have to say, in direct, stark contrast to places who try to, make a dime off the ghost stories, like our Queen Mary's, which I didn't realize they have 4 or 5 new ghost tours. You can pay different amounts of money for to go with a psychic, to go with your ghost hunting tools. And so in stark contrast to something like that, the Roosevelt Hotel really doesn't advertise and tries to stay out of the limelight as far as like paranormal activity goes. But they do have their share of the ghost stories. The hotel catered to the region's film industry as the Knickerbocker, of course, did. You can see just from the outside of the building, they have so many similarities. I love just the name of the hotel, just projected on the roof, just built up there. You don't see that so much anymore. But the city of Los Angeles declared it a historical monument in the mid-90s. And as I mentioned, today it's still there and is just so beautiful. And of course, throughout history, with the Hollywood stars all becoming, regular guests, maybe some of them never left. Here is one story that is told about the Blossom Ballroom. It is the main ballroom of the hotel. And the first and second Academy Awards were actually held in this room.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I didn't know that.
It was mostly just a big glamorous dinner at the time. They would all get together and congratulate each other on being masters of the universe. Because back then, the winners were actually announced way in advance, so everybody knew who won. But so the Oscars night was just let's all get together and party, and they have like a 15-minute ceremony where they hand out the trophies, but there was no like, did I win? Did I not? But that's the Blossom Ballroom, and it is said that there are several stories. One is that if you catch him at just the right time, you can catch a glimpse of the man in a tuxedo walking around looking sad and dejected, like he didn't win his Oscar, and he's just waiting for the good news to finally come that he is a winner. But of course, as I mentioned, I mean, that's the story that is told. But if the winners were announced in advance, why would he be doing that?
I mean, he still could have been sad.
That's true.
Like, it would be hard to be there and watching everybody get their award and being like, man, I wish that was me.
Hoping for a La La Land-esque error, where they read the wrong thing or like that.
Yes.
Very possible. It's also said that there's a perpetual cold spot in that room that just never goes away and could be a portal to the other side.
Ooh.
Many guests have reported whenever there's a piano in that room, hearing beautiful piano music and then coming in and turning the corner, and then there's a man in a white tuxedo playing the piano, but as soon as he is seen, he fades away. Another very popular tale is that it'll be late at night and guests will be walking through the lobby and they will hear what sounds like an incredible party going on. And then, much like this scene from the hit feature film from Paul Carganilla, The Haunted Man,
What's going on? I have no idea.
what do you see? As they turn the corner, they find that nothing is actually happening in that room. But the Blossom Ballroom seems to be still blossoming with activity today.
Yeah.
Another ghost story from the Roosevelt Hotel is room 928 is said to be haunted. by actor Montgomery Clift, who stayed in the Roosevelt's room 928 during his filming of From Here to Eternity, and his role garnered him an Oscar nomination. He is said to be heard reciting his lines, walking up and down the hallway like he's trying to learn his lines. And in that movie, he actually played the bugle, and it is very widely reported that you can still hear him practicing his trumpet late at night from that room. Guests often complain about trumpet playing coming from Montgomery's room.
You know, he's a frequently cited haunting in LA. Some of this is coming back to because my dad's sort of like an amateur old Hollywood historian. He's, read all the biographies, and I grew up watching old movies. But Montgomery Clift is like, his former home is supposedly haunted, and he is an apparition. It just begs the question, like, why certain personalities seem to be spotted more than others. Like, did they have a lot of unfinished business and that has a resonance to it? Or is it just actors and actresses that people really felt very connected to emotionally, so then they just see themselves in it? Like, it's such an interesting question, because there do seem to be probably a dozen or so old Hollywood actors that you hear over and over in hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I don't know, like, to be a repeat haunting in LA, that's an interesting club to be in.
Right. Or just your energy is so strongly imprinted in different places. And maybe it's because of people still think of you that way.
That's what I was thinking. It's like the memory, like people remembering you, how strongly you made that impact could affect your residual hauntings.
Other residual stuff that seems to happen is apparently Shirley Temple learned one of her iconic stair tap dancing routines on the stairs in that hotel, and sometimes if you walk by you can still see her practicing. There's a little girl named Caroline who guests and staff members see frequently in the lobby. She wears like a pink, like Grease style bomber jacket and jeans, and she'll just be dancing and having the time of her life and vanish in front of your eyes. There is back in like some of the earlier ghost stories are of phone problems with the switchboard, where the front desk will pick up the phone and there'll be a little girl asking if they've found her daddy yet. Aww. And the first story goes, the front desk lady picked it up. This girl was saying, "Have you found my daddy? I want to play." And she says, "Where are you? What room are you in?" And the little girl says, "I'm not in a room," and hangs up. And the switchboard lady looks, and the call came from the other end of the lobby. Oh. So she goes over to look for the girl, and there's nobody there. It happens again 20 minutes later. So then she gets the security guard and says, "Hey, there's a little girl lost in the lobby. Can you help me find her?" 20 minutes later, it happens again. "Have you found my daddy yet? Please, I want to play." And she says, "Stay right where you are. We're coming to get you." And she runs over to that side of the lobby. She says to the security guard, she was just here. And the security guard said, I've been here for 15 minutes. No one has picked up this phone. So that is the "Can you find my daddy" girl in the Roosevelt Hotel.
That's interesting.
That's not creepy or heartbreaking at all.
I know. It's got it all.
They say, over the years, phone receivers will be taken off, lights will be turned on in rooms where people haven't been in days and days. There is another famous ghost story at the Roosevelt, which I will admit actually inspired a little piece of my film, The Haunted Man, which happened to be Everly's motion picture debut.
Hide and seek, maybe?
They like light things. Hey! They just ran over here. Come out, wherever you are.
join you tonight?
Of course not.
I got you. Thanks.
So nothing today, Rose?
Nothing specific. It's kind of like a crowded terminal in here, and it's really hard to focus.
That might be the limestone.
I think so. It's kind of like trying to watch TV and someone keeps changing the channel.
The kids?
I couldn't find them.
Oh, I found something in that department. Timothy and Kimberly Kane, twins, age 3. Back in 47, the hotel had a pool in the back.
Drowned.
That's so sad. Wow.
This is a heartbreaking story. So,
Yeah.
Siblings in the hotel pool of the Roosevelt Hotel were there with their father. They were swimming in the morning, got out and had lunch on their pool chairs and fell asleep. Dad thought, they're asleep. I'll go run some errands.
Huh.
When he returned, his children were drowned in the pool, and they are apparently still seen by staff members on security cameras swimming late at night when no one else is there. And security will go look in the pool, and there are no people in sight. But let's bring it back to Marilyn Monroe. She had her very first modeling gig right there at the Roosevelt Hotel, and it was for a sunscreen, and she took a bunch of pictures there at the Tropicana pool at the Roosevelt and fell in love with the place. This is Roosevelt today. The pool is still there. It's like a whole different, it's like a neighborhood hotel it looks like, but it's like a 2-story. It has 2-story cabana rooms all around it, but it is part of the Roosevelt. And so she stayed in one of these second floor rooms, room 1200, for 2 years. I guess it was a thing back in Hollywood. Like a lot of times stars would live at hotels. And she stayed there for 2 years. And now, today, they say you can still see her reflection in a mirror that was allegedly in that room 1200. The story is that after Marilyn died, the hotel owner took the mirror out of that room where she had been living, had it in his office, and a staff member came in to dust it, and while she was dusting the mirror, she saw right over her shoulder behind her Miss Marilyn Monroe looking in the mirror. She turned around. Marilyn was not there. She turned back around. She was still in the mirror, and she faded away. This story got out. It was like run in a paper, and so people started demanding to see the mirror. The hotel eventually put the mirror out at the base of the elevators so people could come and photograph it. But then it just started a pattern of tour groups coming through. Like buses would unload and people would come out and take photos. Like there'd be a line out the door to take photos with this mirror. So finally, like I mentioned earlier, that the hotel was not trying to make a dime off of ghost stories. They finally said, you know what, that's enough. Like Buddy the Elf taking the pamphlets from the guys on the streets of New York City. They said, no, that's enough. You guys are done. So they put the mirror back in storage, and apparently, I don't know, based on the recent Titanic auction, I feel like they should put that up somewhere. And I know
they would, $800,000 or something like that. Yeah.
I'm actually wondering, can you rent that room? Do they still
1200? Yeah, I believe so.
Oh.
I'm sure a lot of people
that's
do
what
that.
I'm thinking.
I would
like,
imagine.
I wonder if you can actually ever get a reservation.
I did find a YouTube video from some ghost hunters who found stayed in the Montgomery Clift 928 room. There's so many YouTube videos on things like this, but like we kind of touched on earlier, I feel like so many of these stories were just told by someone one day and then told again and told again and told again.
It's so hard to get to the source of them.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, like, being able to do the research, like LA here on her story, and be able to be like, I have an opinion, and this could be actually a thing, is so exciting.
Yeah.
I'll just touch on a couple more, as I mentioned, brief. Marilyn She is said to haunt the Hotel Coronado down in San Diego, where she spent time making Some Like It Hot with Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. And she is said to be seen on the bench outside the Hippodrome on the Santa Monica Pier often. I guess that was one of her favorite spots. And people say that they have spotted her from time to time just sitting on the bench, enjoying her night on the Santa Monica Pier. I'm sure those aren't the only spots, but Marilyn Monroe, still the hardest working actor in Hollywood. Just trying to get you to love her, you guys.
Yeah. And there's even, I actually considered doing Marilyn Monroe in my stories before I had landed on Griffith Park. And wait, are you done with Marilyn before?
I am, yes.
Oh, I was going to say and one thing I was thinking about going through, her history and the whole thing. And apparently, even when they were filming this new Marilyn Monroe movie, everybody said that she was on set with them.
Yeah, I did. I listened to a couple of podcasts where they were featuring the film or had not the director on.
No, it was the actress who played her.
Because it was Ana de Armas, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's who I was trying to remember her name.
Yeah, there's some film podcast I was listening to. It was someone that was on the production, not an actor, but they said that they had to have like meetings about this early on in the process because there was stuff happening and everyone had to sort of be on the same page about how they would talk about it. But yeah, I think she was making her presence known on the set. Yeah.
So
we'll
she's
have to
still
look into that and have a special bonus episode. Maybe that'll be one of our Patreon episodes.
Like a follow-up. Yeah, I mean, that would be a good episode thematically. There's a long list of film sets and franchises being haunted.
Film sets, yes.
Yeah, like the Conjuring films, the Poltergeist films. There's the Texas Chainsaw. I mean, I remember, and who directed the new Texas Chainsaw? I heard an interview with him where he said from the moment he started filming that movie, the whole cast and crew were haunted. I mean, it's, I think that would probably be a fun episode.
The Power Rangers. The Power Rangers had all kinds of
tragedies. I remember hearing about that when I was younger, and I was so spooked by that. But another thing about mirrors that ties it back to my experience last week, they say that in olden times they would cover mirrors when people died so that the souls couldn't, bounce around, catch and stay in the mirror.
Yeah.
And so at the Myrtles, there are a couple of mirrors, and we saw them obviously where people come from all over the country to take pictures because supposedly there are these certain ghosts in the mirrors there. But that is the belief there, that the mirrors weren't properly covered when a death happened. And so that's how.
And a lot of people just in general say mirrors are definitely like a portal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm adding these. So now I have mid-April events, haunted film sets, mirrors.
And mirrors. You've got a whole season already mapped out. Don't look up the April thing until April 20th.
Yeah. I'm not even talking about
I feel terrible for bringing this up. Don't look. Just put a note in your phone to look on April 20th.
I'm gonna forget. Just forget.
Is this the whole reason for 420? Is there like a reason?
Oh my gosh, yes. I know my husband and the kids were watching earlier. If they're still watching, he's probably chuckling. I hope so. I hope it was just like that was one of the founding principles. Like, we have to deal with all of this and we have to cope. So
numb our brains while this happens. That's for sure.
Yep.
Well, we have a extensive list to enjoy some adventures here in season 2. And before we say goodbye, we end every episode with a duet. Yes. As I've mentioned before, Amanda is always at the horrible mercy of me just lobbing her something and saying, do something with this.
I like it though. It's fun.
We did go back to the whole Hollywood iconic film thing. And we, of course, had to ground it in the ghost theme. And so when you think of the movie Ghost, there is a very iconic scene in which Demi and Patrick are making some clay together.
They're having an amorous moment.
Yes!
Perfect. Oh, and on that soundtrack, the director so wisely used Unchained Melody. And so we're going to send y'all off with a little duet of Unchained Melody.
All right, here we go.
Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch a long, lonely time.
And time goes by so slowly, and time can do so much. Are you still mine?
I need your love.
I need your love.
Godspeed your love to me.
Lonely rivers flow from the sea to the sea, to the open arms of the sea. Yeah.
Lonely rivers cry, wait for me, wait for me. I'll be coming home, wait for me.
Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch a long, lonely time.
Time goes by so slowly, and time can do so much. Are you still mine?
I need your love.
I need your love. Godspeed your love to me.
Good job.
Yay! I was like, where's my applause?
Wonderful editing.
This is the part where I like sit. This is the part I cannot contribute to. So this is what I just hear. I don't know. Next time I can recite a poem. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
That's the only
You
thing I can do.
recite a poem like my curse.
Yeah,
What a
I'll just
poem.
find a thematic poem,
Yeah.
and I'll wear a little hat, and I'll do a reading.
The hat will make it all.
Yeah, that'll make it.
Mr. David Benjamin says that might be their best duet yet. Well,
Aw,
thank you. And great
It was so nice.
adaptation and editing, Amanda. Thank you so much for that.
Loved it.
Thank you, LA, for joining us here for season 2. You're now locked into every episode, so welcome.
I feel like I, you know, with all the suggestions, I'm like, you should do this, you should do this. Like, don't feel any pressure to actually make any of those. But it just, I guess I'm sitting here and we bring up ideas. It is fun to think like thematically, there's so many ways you could talk about.
Oh yeah.
Like, what is a haunting and what, you know, so anyway, I think these stories allowed us to touch on a lot of fun stuff. This was really fun. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute delight. I love it.
Let's do it again very soon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to take a second to thank our Patreon supporters. Executive producers Raman Sarunath Barron, as well as Emily Thatcher. And special thank yous to Diana Nicole, Kelsey Blink Gibson, Barbara and Steve Boardman, as well as David Benjamin. Thank you guys so much. And if you would like to be part of our Patreon, it's very easy. You go to patreon.com/The Magical Mystery Hour and choose the level that you would like to support us on. And we would just be ever so grateful. So thank you so much to those who have joined our Patreon. And like I said, we're going to have, we started last month, and we're going to have Patreon meetings where, like I said, sometimes we'll talk about the show. Sometimes we'll just play games. Sometimes I'm going to read you a spooky story. So it's fun. Oh yeah. Yeah. I have one ready to go for this month.
I'm going to join. I want to join. I want someone to read me a spooky story. That sounds fun.
Yes.
Maybe if I get trained up enough at some point, I can hop on Patreon and do readings for people.
Ooh, yeah.
While you're on Patreon, check out Unsinkable, the Titanic podcast, LA Beadles Patreon, and of course Cove Pod over here. We're my Patreon as well. We appreciate every way you guys support independent podcasts. Of course, we're not running commercials. We're not taking money from corporations to keep this thing going. We're doing it because we love it, and there are costs involved. So everything you do to help us along the way is just so much appreciated. We feel your love, just by you tuning in.
Yes.
But if you want to level up and support the show tangibly, that's a way to do that. We appreciate you all so much, and thank you again, LA. Thank you again, Amanda Benjamin.
And
thank you again from myself.
Yay, Paul Carganilla.
From myself.
Yes.
And we'll see you until the next mystery.
Good night.
Good night.
Stay spooky. We'll see you soon.